subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
For his teammates at the training ground all morning, but Sasuke and Sakura didn't show up. He didn't wait until noon for Kakashi to arrive. The white-haired Nakanobu said he would take Sasuke for special training. As for Sakura, she went to Konoha Hospital to practice medical ninjutsu. Didn't you practice well by yourself before? Naruto gritted his teeth and had strong objections to Kakashi. Although it is true to say so, you are too biased as a white-haired Jonin. And why Kakashi attaches so much importance to Sasuke is 100% because of Obito. Thinking of this, Naruto found that he had another reason to kill Obito. Do not worry. Someone will take you to train. Kakashi stared with dead eyes. Jiraiya's figure flashed in his mind. Oh right, Naruto, do you still have a steak I ate last time? That thing should make the person who eats it dream about the deceased, right? Uzumaki Naruto. Is there a possibility? Last time you died suddenly because of eating that steak, and then you went to the Pure Land to see the dead person? Naruto's expression was very distorted after hearing Kakashi's words. However, in order to honor his beloved teacher Kakashi, Naruto still took out colorful steaks and thoughtfully took out a totem of immortality. Kakashi was happy to see the colorful meat steak again, but was dumbfounded when Naruto took out his weapon. Naruto, what are you? Teacher Kakashi, if you want to see the deceased, you must hug this statue and eat the steak. What is the principle of this? Naruto's words were so serious that Kakashi believed him. But why is this statue so versatile? It can be used as a weapon, and it can also see the dead. Kakashi didn't know how to complain for a while. Maybe the souls of the deceased should be guided by the statue. Don't ask so many questions, just do as you are told. I guarantee you will see the deceased. Naruto couldn't believe the reason he made up, so he simply stopped making it up. Anyway, I just told Kakashi that if he wants to see the deceased, he should do as he says. Kakashi was stunned for a while, and finally accepted Naruto's outrageous statement. There is no way. Who told him to see his father last time? When he was holding the statue, his mind was filled with images of Obito, Lin, his father, and his teacher. I wonder who I can see this time. Finally, Kakashi put the meat steak into his arms, hugged the statue, and walked home with great anticipation. Naruto saw the departing figure of Bai Mao Zongdan and silently crossed himself on his chest, mourning for him for a second in his heart. Well, Kakashi-sensei, I forgive you. Still like this, Naruto was still a little angry when he thought that Kakashi favored Sasuke because of Obito. Since Bai Mao Zongdan took the initiative to die, he should first go to Obito to collect some interest. Naruto showed a wild smile, opened a space door, and came to Uchiha Obito's graveyard. When I first arrived here, the first thing I saw was neat rows of tombstones. All the fallen heroes of Konoha village will be buried here. Naruto was disdainful of this. However, it is okay to say that Obito is dead. When he was young, he had already died in Kakashi's heart along with the rock. Obito, who is now causing trouble behind the scenes in the ninja world, is just the shadow of a certain long-haired hedgehog. Looking at the tombstone, a smiling photo of Uchiha Obito as a boy was posted on it. In front of the tombstone, there were fresh fruits, a few bunches of meatballs and flowers. Next to Obito's tombstone, Naruto also saw Harano Lin's tombstone, which was also decorated with flowers and fresh tributes. From the water drops hanging on these flowers, it is not difficult to tell that these tributes should have just been sent by Kakashi today. Moreover, the neatness of these two tombstones is much cleaner than the tombstones of other people around them. Is it possible for white-haired Zongdan to visit Obito every day? Kakashi hasn't found a girlfriend in so many years. Is it possible that he never married because of Obito? Naruto looked around furtively, and after making sure no one was around, he sat down in front of Uchiha Obito's tombstone. He picked up an apple, wiped it on his clothes, and took a bite, as if the fruit in his hand was the damn Uchiha Obito. After ruthlessly eating Obito's tribute, Naruto looked at the flowers in the vase, rolled his eyes, and immediately thought about it. After confirming again that no one was around, he walked to the vase in 2 steps and started pouring water. During the process, Naruto even closed one eye and tried his best to aim at the vase. Still like this, he still splashed all over the floor. Have you been feeling angry these past 2 days? With 2 shakes, Naruto finally got to the task of fertilizing the flowers. He didn't have any bad intentions. He just wanted the flower to live a few more days. Hey, that kid, what are you doing? At this time, a powerful voice sounded in Naruto's ears. Naruto, who had a guilty conscience, immediately put on his pants and ran away. As soon as he took 2 steps and planned to open a space door to leave, he suddenly realized, what am I afraid of? Nothing will happen if you get caught. There is no one in the entire Konoha village who can give him trouble. After realizing the situation, Naruto turned around and put his hands on his hips, proudly raised his head, and looked at the person. Then he saw a hedgehog-headed Laoden, wearing a forehead protector with the word oil on his head, and wearing wooden clogs, gada, running in his direction. Just pick out the above characteristics, and you will know who this white-haired old man is. Apparently Jiraiya, one of the Sannin. It is worth mentioning that the old white-haired man also held an apple in his hand. Depend on, white-haired Laoden also comes here to steal tributes? Hey, kid, what were you doing just now? You actually did that kind of thing to the hero of Konoha. Don't you have any respect at all? Jiraiya walked up to Naruto, finished blaming him, and took a bite of the apple in his hand. Uzumaki Naruto, white-haired Laoden. When you say this, why don't you put down the tribute in your hand first? Naruto thought about the scene of meeting Jiraiya countless times, but he really didn't expect to bump into him while stealing tributes in the cemetery. It does not matter. Tributes are just the living's condolences and condolences to the deceased. Rather than leave it here to rot, it would be better for me, a young man, to eat it, etc. What did you just call me? Jiraiya was speaking seriously, but suddenly he realized that the yellow-haired boy in front of him actually called himself Shermao Laoden. He is known as the white-haired boy. How can it be so old? Bai Mao Laoden, afraid that the old man in front of him might not hear clearly, Naruto spoke clearly and slowly again. After hearing this, Jiraiya's fists became hardened with veins protruding from his forehead. You little brat, listen to me. I am. Without saying a word, Jiraiya gave Naruto a dance on the spot. But Naruto didn't give Laoden a chance at all and turned around to leave. Jiraiya, who had just prepared his words, suddenly got stuck in his throat and his expression twisted together. In all his years of traveling in the ninja world, he has never encountered such a rude brat. Wait a moment, kid. You don't want the Hokage to know that you did something like that in the resting place of Konoha's heroes, right? Naruto ignored by Mao Laoden, and his pace of leaving gradually changed from slow to fast. Jiraiya behind him saw this kid ignoring him and was so angry that he rushed up on the spot, planning to punish him. Impolite brat, can't you just finish listening to what you have to say? 2 figures ran out of the cemetery one after the other. At this time, the space in front of Yuan Yelin's tombstone was distorted, and then the masked man Obito came here. He held a bouquet of flowers in his hand. After looking at Lin's photo, he leaned over and placed the bouquet in front of Lin's tombstone. Just as Obito was about to say something to Lin, he suddenly noticed the water-stained flowers beside his tombstone. Kakashi guy. Obito gritted his teeth, disgusted with Kakashi's behavior of giving him flowers. That guy killed Lin with his own hands. He actually has the nerve to come here. Obito walked to his tombstone dissatisfied, grabbed the bouquet in the vase, and threw the flowers aside with disgust. After shaking off the water stains on his hands, Obito moved his nose and suddenly smelled a strange smell on his hands. This smell is... He raised his hand and smelled it carefully. Obito was so angry that he threw the mask on the ground and crushed it with his foot. See, what the hell are you doing? Chapter 82, Third Generation. Naruto, that kid is very, very well behaved. The 3rd generation blew out a smoke ring and looked at Jiraiya and Naruto, who were idle in front of them. The wrinkles on their faces could kill mosquitoes. 10 minutes ago, he learned from Umbu that the older one and the younger one went to the cemetery to steal the tributes of Konoha heroes. When he heard the news, third generation almost fainted on the spot so that he could keep company with his old friend Danzo from the hospital. Where's the cemetery? That is where all the heroes who died fighting for the village live. These two guys are great. Not only did they go to the cemetery and make a lot of noise, but they also went to extreme lengths to steal other people's tributes. What if the family of the deceased knew this? And many of the people in the cemetery were family members who died in the war. The third generation's blood pressure soared at the thought of those people whose entire families had died in the war being disturbed by these two bastards. Forget it, Naruto. He has been causing trouble in the village for more than a day or two anyway. But this guy Jiraiya is so old that he can do this, which really makes the third generation very angry. What on earth are you two thinking? How could the place where the heroes of Konoha live do such nonsense? Faced with the third generation's questioning, Jiraiya turned to look to the right, and Naruto turned to the left. Both of them had an attitude of say whatever you want, but I just don't intend to admit my mistake. Watching third generation tremblingly take out the medicine from the drawer, take it quickly, and take a few deep breaths before he is not angry enough to carry it. That's a tribute. What on earth are you thinking? Third generation has a hoarse voice, sounding like an old man who is about to die. Naruto picked his nose, his eyes wandered, and argued before the white-haired old man could. Tributes are just the living's condolences and condolences to the deceased. Rather than leave it to rot in the cemetery, it would be better for a young man like me to eat it. This uncle taught me this. Naruto directly put a big black pot on by Mao Lao in, and the third generation immediately glared at Jiraiya. Even the thick-skinned Jiraiya felt a little embarrassed when he heard these familiar words. He turned and glared at Naruto. Boy, when did I teach you? Old man, don't listen to this kid's nonsense. How wronged I am. Jiraiya moved and avoided the big black pot thrown by Huang Mao on the spot. Oh, by Mao Lao in. Just tell me if this is what you told me. You kid. Naruto's two words instantly aroused Jiraiya's anger. The atmosphere at the scene was also full of gunpowder, and the two men were about to fight in the Hokage office in the next second. Boom! Third generation slammed the table angrily, stood up, and scolded the two. Nonsense! You haven't taken me as a Hokage seriously yet. If you want to call me, get out and fight. The two men, who were at war with each other, shrank their necks at the same time when they saw third generation being so furious. The two sides looked at each other, snorted coldly, and turned to look aside. Jiraiya felt that this boy was no match for him. If he hadn't given the old man face, he would have taught this yellow-haired boy a lesson, so that he knows how to respect his elders. Third generation was silent for a long time, looked at Naruto's figure, rubbed his head, and said, "If you want to cause trouble like this again, forget about sealing the scroll." Third generation tried to use this method to calm Naruto down for a while. However, Naruto glanced at the third generation old man and didn't care. Anyway, after the exam, Chunin will take the seat of the third generation old man. Whether the Hokage will accept it or not is another matter. However, considering that the third generation veteran didn't have many days to live, Naruto finally nodded obediently and made a fuss. Let third generation Lao Deng live a peaceful life for a few days. And you, Jiraiya, didn't I ask Umbu to inform you to come see me? Why haven't you come to the Hokage building for so long? If Umbu hadn't caught him today, wouldn't he have even planned to see me, an old man? The third generation turned around and began to attack Jiraiya. He was looking forward to Jiraiya returning to the village. It was hard to wait until he came back. But this guy is great. Every day I go to the custom shop to drink, or I go to the women's bathhouse to peek. As soon as Umbu found this guy, he just shook his head and waved his hands, saying that he was not free and would go to the Hokage building when he had time. Ha 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 ha. It's been too long since I've been back. I really want to see the changes in the village over the years. Jiraiya laughed, and then suddenly remembered that Kakashi was looking for him in the morning. Kakashi said that Hokage wanted him to teach Minato's son. He felt that taking the initiative to bring this matter up with the old man now might help the old man calm down. All right, I heard that when I return to the village this time, I'll be asked to teach Minato's children, right? When Jiraiya said this, his expression suddenly became serious. Minato, after so many years, his child should be about the same age as the annoying kid next to him. Indeed, as Jiraiya thought, the expression on third generation's face softened a lot after hearing this. He did not speak, but looked at Naruto, who was standing there in a daze. At this time, the scene was suddenly silent for a while. Jiraiya looked at the yellow hair next to him, then at the old man with a serious face, and opened his mouth with difficulty. Old man, you don't tell me. Jiraiya saw that third generation's eyes were always on that boy, and he began to feel something bad in his heart. Impossible. How could Minato's child be this annoying brat in front of him? Absolutely not. Right. He is Minato's child, Uzumaki Naruto. Jiraiya. Upon hearing the bad news, Jiraiya turned to stone on the spot. After a few seconds, he accepted the fact, rubbed his face, and walked towards the door pretending to be nonchalant. Jiraiya, if you dare to walk out of this door today, don't come back again. The third generation was really mad. He had been waiting for Jiraiya to return to the village to discipline Naruto for so many years. After finally waiting until today, Jiraiya wants to give up without saying a word. He cannot accept such a result. The entire Konoha village cannot accept it. Jiraiya turned his head and said with a look of surprise, "Is there such a good thing?" Third generation was so angry that he sat down on the chair, clutching his chest with his hands, and his breathing became like a bellows. Old man, calm down first. Jiraiya still knew the importance. So he stepped forward and came to the third generation to ask. Naruto was very skilled. He has watched third generation take medicine for so many years, and he has long known where the old man from third generation keeps the medicine. Naruto skillfully opened the drawer, poured a handful of sushin pills from the medicine bottle, and put it into the third generation's mouth. Third generation is happy to see this child caring about them. You kid grabbed a handful of medicine because you were worried that I wouldn't die quickly enough? Third generation glanced at Naruto, who looked well-behaved, pushed the child's hand away, picked up 2 pills from his hand, and took them. But after taking the medicine, he still looked like he was dying. He took Xiong Jiraiya's hand, as if a dying man was preparing to tell his disciples about the future. Jiraiya, old man, I don't have many years left to live. I just want you to teach Naruto. Jiraiya looked at Naruto, then at the aging third generation, and hesitated for 3 minutes before nodding and agreeing. All right, I promise you just. When the third generation heard this, their eyes suddenly brightened, and they stood up suddenly, grabbing Jiraiya by the collar. Don't go back on your word. Jiraiya's face changed slightly, feeling like he had been fooled by this bad old man. In order to eliminate Jiraiya's concerns, third generation even said the most unintentional words in his life. Jiraiya, don't worry. Naruto, that kid is very, very well behaved. Naruto looked shocked. Even he felt ashamed after hearing it. How on earth did third generation Lao Deng have the nerve to say this? However, seeing third generation Lao Deng staring at him, Naruto immediately understood the meaning. He scratched his head and showed a simple and honest smile. Well-behaved. JPG Chapter 83 Traitor. What are you doing? Finally, Jiraiya agreed to teach Naruto under the coercion and inducement of the third Hokage. In order to get Jiraiya to agree, third generation even lent his crystal ball for 2 days. At first, Jiraiya felt that he had been deceived by the old man. But the moment he saw the crystal ball, he had already put all worries behind him. The next day, Jiraiya and Naruto made an appointment at the training ground east of the village. Hey. Jiraiya sat cross-legged on the stone, holding the crystal ball of the third generation old man in his arms. When he smiled obscenely, there was still saliva hanging from the corners of his mouth. Can you stop for a moment? Lao Deng, at your age, you can really still. Naruto was standing on the side complaining, but he was interrupted just now when he poked at the old white-haired old man's sore spot. Oh, What nonsense are you talking about? How can a boy of your age say such dirty words? I tell you, I'm very fierce at my age. Jiraiya became anxious on the spot when he heard Naruto's words. Just kidding. This is a man's dignity. How can anyone arbitrarily smear it? Uzumaki Naruto. I haven't even finished speaking. Why are you so anxious? It must be impossible. Naruto stared at Jiraiya's old face, his eyes full of doubts. He didn't say anything, but he said everything. When Jiraiya saw this boy's appearance, he became extremely angry. The main thing is, this kid always took out some weird cards and waved them in front of him when he was in a mood. He even met Chiyo from Sunagakure village, even riding a horse in a swimsuit. The most outrageous thing is that there is also fourth rakage. He just glanced at it and felt chilled all over, and he had no interest in looking at the crystal ball again. Jiraiya looked at the cards all over the place, his whole body filled with resistance. This wasn't what frightened him the most. Jiraiya is really afraid that Naruto will test these cards and then use the transformation technique to appear in front of him. Naruto, can you find a place to stay by yourself first? Besides, I have promised the old man to accept you as his disciple. Can you respect me as a teacher? Do you know you want to call me teacher? Now, immediately, put away those weird cards of yours. Naruto lowered his head and said nothing, and continued to take out the exclusive cards for the reboot from the system. These cards were drawn by Uzumaki Naruto, and they contained various women's clothing cards. What about Likue in white silk stockings? Zhang Fei in fishnet stockings? J.K. Danzo? If it weren't for the fact that third-generation Laoden was still around, Uzumaki Naruto would have even wanted to draw Sarutobi Hiruzen in a stepfather skirt. In short, the level of mental pollution in these cards can be described as overwhelming. Even Naruto didn't dare to look at it. When he placed these cards in front of Jiraiya, he always recalled Hinata's 18-year-old appearance in his mind to resist severe mental pollution. Stop. Can I teach you a powerful technique? Jiraiya has a very big head. Even now, he won't believe what that bad old man said. Still well-behaved? Naruto, this kid. What's so clever about this horse? Even if it was him, he couldn't cause trouble like this kid when he was a child. Naruto, who was taking out the cards, started to move when he heard that Jiraiya wanted to teach him something. A powerful technique? Rolling balls? Or spiritualism? Naruto quickly threw the card on the ground into the system. He raised his head and showed his obedient expression again. Shiro, Jiraiya-sensei, what powerful technique are you going to teach me? Jiraiya's eyes twitched. He felt that the child just wanted to call him by Mao Laoden. Looking at Naruto's yellow hair, Jiraiya thought of Minato. How could Minato, who was such a well-behaved person when he was a child, give birth to a child like Naruto? Or, this kid follows Kushina? A certain red pepper flashed in Jiraiya's mind, and he showed a frightened expression. It does seem a bit similar. Ahem. With his thoughts racing, Jiraiya coughed twice, carefully put the crystal ball into his arms, stood up, and straightened his clothes. Naruto, watch it. Jiraiya bit his thumb, smearing blood onto the palm of his hand, and began to form seals with his hands. Then he pressed one hand to the ground and shouted, "Psychic art!" Boom. After a burst of smoke, an orange toad about 2 meters long appeared on the spot. It opened its mouth, rolled its tongue, and spit out a scroll. Jiraiya took the scroll and threw it in front of Naruto. Sign your name on the scroll. As he spoke, he opened the scroll and revealed the text inside. On are written the names of people who have signed contracts with Mount Maiboku throughout the ages. Naruto directly picked up the pen and wrote his name after his cheap father. After completing this ritual, Jiraiya began to teach the essentials of psychic seals. How about it? How much do you remember about psychic skills? Jiraiya asked casually and was about to send Naruto aside to figure it out on his own. However, after he finished speaking, he found that Naruto didn't speak and was still standing motionless. It was as if his time was barred. What are you doing? My teacher is asking you something. How many psychic techniques have you memorized? Jiraiya shouted for a full 2 minutes before he saw Naruto making any movement. Half. Naruto looked up at Jiraiya with clear stupidity in his eyes. It's not that Spiritism is difficult. The main reason is that Jiraiya talked a lot about sealing techniques during the teaching process just now, which is very easy to understand. Naruto remembered the flying thunder god that he had written down in the seal scroll before, and his consciousness sank directly into the sealed space to study the flying thunder god. As a result, he found that after he understood several sealing techniques knowledge points, studying flying thunder god was still the same as doing math problems. The good news is that he has a clue. As for the psychic technique Jiraiya mentioned just now, naturally, I forgot to listen to the remaining half. You! Jiraiya was angry and his fist became hard again. However, he still explained the essentials of Spiritism again. This time Naruto listened very carefully. Okay, you can go and practice by yourself. Jiraiya put his hands on Naruto's shoulders, pushed him to the side, and then kept waving his hands to drive him away. From just now, Naruto couldn't even remember the essentials of necromancy. It is not difficult to infer that it will take a long time for this child to practice this technique skillfully. I guess Minato's talent was not passed down to the child. But this also means that I can have a quiet life. Thinking of this, Jiraiya found a corner and took out the crystal ball. Hey, young girls are pretty good. Jiraiya's eyes almost went into the crystal ball. Boom, but at this moment, there were suddenly several loud noises around him, and Jiraiya was so frightened that he almost threw the old man's precious crystal ball away. Earthquake? Jiraiya turned around with doubts. I almost fainted on the spot. Traitor, stop it. That's the Great Toad Sage. Chapter 84, that's a psychic beast. It's our partner. The Great Toad Sage, nearly 100 meters tall, sat cross-legged on the spot, with his head lowered and a deafening purr coming from his mouth. Of course, this is not what scares Jiraiya. Mainly, dozens of yellow hairs are holding iron chains at this time, each appearing on the toad's limbs, shoulders, and head, constantly wrapping iron chains around the Great Toad Sage. As for Naruto's body, he stood in front of the big toad, holding the iron chain that bound it in his hand, carrying it on his shoulders, and struggling forward. If you hadn't looked at the toad behind him, you might have mistaken him for an experienced boat tracker. In Naruto's impression, he was only familiar with the toad holding a machete on Mount Maiboku. In addition, the two-dimensional and three-dimensional aspects of animation are very different. Looking at the real situation, the toad that he channeled himself had no other different characteristics from the toad that Jiraiya channeled before, except for the size. In addition, this toad goes to sleep as soon as it comes out and cannot be woken up even if it screams. Seeing this mountain-like body, Naruto couldn't help itching his hands and wanted to see if he could drag the weight in front of him. In the distance, Jiraiya's cry did not stop Naruto from dragging the toad. All he could think about now was the snoring of the toad, and if he could hear the old white-haired man saying that he was a ghost. Naruto, traitor, stop it. Jiraiya was already sweating profusely when he saw the Great Toad Sage appearing here. Over the years, he has repeatedly asked to see the Great Toad Sage, but the answers he received from Mount Maiboku were, Great Toad Sage is sleeping and sees no one else. Jiraiya never thought he would see the Great Toad Sage in this condition today. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead, and he ran to Naruto in 3 steps at a time. Lao, dang, why are you here? Naruto stopped dragging the big toad for a moment and turned to look at Jiraiya, who looked panicked. You, hurry up and take off those chains. That's Mount Maiboku's Great Toad Sage. Jiraiya snatched the chain from Naruto's hand, pointed at Toad Sage behind him, and cursed. He was really going to PS this kid off. Although I don't know how Naruto channeled the Great Toad Sage, judging from the current situation, Jiraiya is really worried that Mount Maiboku will unilaterally terminate the contract they signed because of this matter. Naruto stopped what he was doing and looked at Jiraiya in confusion, then turned back and looked at the big toad who was still snoring. The moment he learned that it was only the Great Toad Sage behind him, he was really confused. Shouldn't Toad Sage hide in Mount Maiboku and sleep, then wake up and give Jiraiya some prophecies? Why was it channeled by myself? What are you? Move quickly. Jiraiya was angry and anxious. How long has this been? Why are you just sitting there in a daze? What if the Great Toad Sage wakes up at this time? I found myself tied up with chains. You don't need to think too much to know that the consequences are very serious. Jiraiya roared on the spot, angrily using Shadow Clone, and ran to Toad Sage's feet first. I plan to take off the chains myself. Boom! When Jiraiya just stretched out his hand, smoke surrounded him, and as the sound rang out, the figure of the great Toad Sage also disappeared. It's over, it's over! Jiraiya pressed his head with both hands, a look of panic on his face. There is only one possibility for the sudden disappearance of Toad Sage. That was the psychic technique that it had just woken up from its sleep and found the chains on its body, so it took the initiative to lift them. Jiraiya's brain is about to explode right now. Traitor, look at the good things you did. He really couldn't figure out what was going on in this kid's mind. When a normal person learns psychic skills, shouldn't he first marvel at his powerful psychic beast or praise his teacher? For example, Minato is like this, and Naruto is a good kid. Not only did he channel the immortal from Mount Maiboku, he also took out a chain and tied it up and then started dragging the psychic beast. That horse is a psychic beast. Ninja's fighting partner. It's not a weight-bearing. When Jiraiya thought about the sleeping great Toad Sage being dragged by this child for weight training, his blood pressure suddenly rose. Recalling the third-generation old man's drawer of medicine, Jiraiya seemed to understand somewhat. Besides, how well-behaved is this child? Jiraiya-sensei, am I good at psychic skills? Jiraiya. Naruto didn't take the great Toad Sage as a burden at all. When I first channeled the big toad, I ran to it and shouted in its ear. The toad fell asleep as if it was dead. That's why Naruto regarded the giant toad as a burden. Jiraiya's face darkened, and he raised his hand to hit the child, but when Naruto saw the white-haired old man raising his hand, he thought he was going to touch his head and quickly dodged it. You kid, do you know what you just did? That's an immortal from the Three Holy Lands, a being comparable to the Sage of Six Paths. Oh, facing the angry Jiraiya, Naruto's expression was very calm. Isn't that just living for 1,000 years? He understands. Being old and not dying is a monster. Lauding Yaoding, I will know how to say polite greetings when I see Great Toad Sage and Sage of Six Paths in the future. Jiraiya made Naruto laugh angrily on the spot. He is so stupid now, really. He should have just left when he was in the Hokage office. Why did you agree to that, old man? Jiraiya felt his brain hurt just by looking at Naruto now. After a long pause, Jiraiya still put himself in the position of teacher and continued to teach Naruto. Naruto, you use necromancy again. You control chakra a little. Don't use too much. Jiraiya just thought about it and found that there is only one possibility for Naruto to channel the Great Toad Sage. That is, this child carries a massive amount of chakra. I called out Great Toad Sage by chance. Okay, I get it now. Naruto was stunned for a moment and nodded to show that he listened. When he was using the psychic technique just now, he thought that the more chakra he used, the bigger the toad would be. In the end, he channeled the Great Toad Sage Demon. Biting his fingers, Naruto formed seals with his hands again. Psychic art. Boom! At this time, before the two of them could see the figure of the toad clearly, a scornful voice sounded in their ears. Little Jiraiya, what do you want from me? Who are you going to do again? Jiraiya, this is better than the one just now. Chapter 85, Brother Naruto. I don't understand. Isn't it the psychic technique used by Jiraiya? Gamabunta grabbed the cigarette rod and blew out a huge smoke ring. Jiraiya grabbed Naruto's neck and whispered through gritted teeth. Naruto, you remember, psychic beasts are our partners. Don't ever do anything like that to me again. Do you know? Say, no. The imprisoned Naruto glanced at the toad ruffian in front of him, his eyes full of regret. Pity. This toad is bigger than the one just now. If I use it for training, I will definitely become a lot stronger. Jiraiya let out a long sigh of relief after hearing Naruto's words. Fine. Naruto, the kid, could still listen to what he said. Taiwan, it was this child who channeled you. His name is Uzumaki Naruto. Uzumaki Naruto? Gamabunta looked at the yellow-haired boy, and Minato's figure flashed through his mind. Is he actually the child of that boy Minato? It was slightly surprised by Uzumaki Naruto. Even Minato couldn't channel himself at Naruto's age. Jiraiya then chatted with Bunta for a while and warned Naruto. After making sure that he would not do anything ridiculous again, he left Naruto to Bunta and escaped first. If he continued to stay, Jiraiya estimated that he would make Naruto angry. Moreover, he still has to settle the score with the old man. It's not that he was unwilling to accept Naruto as his disciple. Why don't you tell yourself clearly about Naruto's situation, you lousy old man? Rough. After Jiraiya left the training ground, he immediately ran to the Hokage building. As a result, before entering the gate, he was stopped by two Umbun ninjas. Jiraiya-sama, please stay. Sir Third Generation said that he has been busy with official duties these past 2 days. No outsiders for now. When the Umbun ninja said this, he couldn't help but sympathize with Jiraiya. You must know that Master Jiraiya is now shouldering the important task of teaching Konoha Huangmao. It is no exaggeration to say that the future of Konoha is left to Jiraiya. This old man. Jiraiya was stunned on the spot. What can I say about busy these 2 days? He felt that the old man simply had a guilty conscience and didn't dare to see him at all, for fear that he would give up and quit, right? Saratobi Hiruzen, come out. If you have the ability to lie to me, come out and see me if you have the ability. Jiraiya directly called out the third generation old man's name, which was enough to show how angry he was. The third generation was hiding behind the curtains in the office. He opened the gap in the curtains and observed Jiraiya, who was cursing downstairs through this gap. No matter how harshly Jiraiya scolded him, he just didn't say a word and was even a little happy. Very good. Finally, he no longer had to face that child Naruto. Jiraiya, as my disciple, I can only work hard to help my master solve my problems. He now wanted to throw the pile of pills in the drawer into the trash. Perhaps, after having Jiraiya, he no longer needs to eat these things. Jiraiya-sama, go back. Third generation Sama won't see you. Finally, when the Umbun ninja saw the furious Jiraiya, he couldn't bear it and secretly warned him. Hateful, I knew it wouldn't do any good to ask me to go back to the village. Jiraiya, who couldn't see the third generation, could only stand helpless and furious under the Hokage building. After scolding for nearly half an hour, he stepped on his clogs and left with a livid face. However, he was still mumbling when he left. Damn old man, don't even think about taking the crystal ball back. On the other side, Uzumaki Naruto's exclusive training ground. Naruto and Gamabunta get along very well. This big toad said that Minato was its little brother, and that Naruto was his little brother's son, and if something happened to him, it would designate him to protect his little brother's son. Hearing that Gamabunta wanted to cover him up, Naruto felt quite subtle. Do not know why. Naruto always felt that he got along very well with the animals, but it was very difficult to get along with other people in the village. Don't mention anything else. Just take my uncle as an example. He still hates himself now. It was obviously his uncle who had beaten him to vomit before. So Naruto Uzumaki was very generous to his family by not holding any grudges. Moreover, it's been a few years since this happened, but why does Nisai hold a grudge more than him? Thinking of this, Naruto felt that he should get along well with the people around him. He glanced at the mountain-like Gamabunta in front of him, and a golden light flashed in his mind. Got it. He can help Konohamaru and Brother Sakura conduct special training. Naruto remembered that they expressed to him the idea of becoming stronger several times. Thinking of this, Naruto and Bunta exchanged a few words, released the psychic technique, then transformed into a clone, passed through the light gate. One went to find Brother Sakura, and the main body went to find his younger brother Konohamaru. At noon, Konohamaru and Sakura appeared at the training ground. The expressions of the two of them were very confused. They were all dragged here by Naruto, saying that there was a way to make them stronger. Of course, the two still have expectations in their hearts, especially Brother Ing. As she practiced medical ninja, she felt more and more the gap between herself, Sasuke, and Naruto. After all, Naruto can take out a lot of things to restore injuries. This makes her training in medical ninjutsu even more useless. Konohamaru originally wanted to learn martial arts from his elder brother. He had recently replaced the hollow wooden door with a solid wooden door. Although it was still a little difficult to lift it up, Konohamaru found that he had become stronger, especially after Grandpa saw him. The fear he showed was enough to prove that he had become stronger. Brother, let's start. Are we going to practice martial arts today? Konohamaru looked excited and looked like he couldn't wait. Sakura's head was buzzing when she saw the child mention the method. No, isn't it? I don't want to learn Naruto's skills. Naruto, should we forget about it? I don't think I'm suitable to learn your physical skills. Sakura hesitated for a moment and decided that she would be better off going to the hospital to continue learning medical ninjutsu. Mainly when she looked at Naruto's familiar smile, she always felt uneasy. Brothering, don't worry. This special training is not about that. Naruto showed a reliable smile, which made Sakura even more uneasy. She remembered the last time Naruto smiled like this when he was dressed as Sasuke and almost became a rebellious nin, right? Watch it. Naruto didn't notice the abnormality in Brother Ying's expression. He bit his thumb and began to form seals with his hands. The two people beside them were suddenly shocked by Naruto's hand, especially Sakura. She knew that Naruto's only real jutsu was the multiple shadow clone, and it was the kind that formed a seal. So many prints now. Are you going to teach them ninjutsu? Naruto seems to be reliable for once. Psychic art. As Naruto pressed the ground with one hand, Gamabunta's huge figure appeared in front of the two of them. Sakura and Konohamaru raised their necks stiffly and looked at the giant toad in front of them. Their hearts were shocked, and at the same time, they felt a surge of anticipation. Brother Naruto, I want to learn this. Konohamaru lowered his head and shouted excitedly, only to find that his elder brother who was standing next to him just now was gone. Hey, where's Brother Naruto? Naruto, what are you doing up there? Sakura looked up and noticed Naruto suddenly appearing above the big toad, and her uneasiness became even stronger. Aren't you learning this technique? Why did Naruto run up there? Naruto stood on Gamabunta's head with his arms folded. At this time, he felt that he just needed to carry a scroll and put on orange eyeshadow. After being distracted for a short time, Naruto looked at the two people on the ground and shouted to Gamabunta very seriously. Tai Lao one brother. Attack them. Gamabunta? Hearing Naruto's words, Gamabunta was stunned for a full minute. No, Konoha doesn't seem to be that many years old, right? Why do I feel like I can't keep up with the thinking of today's young ninjas? However, Mrs. One didn't think much. She raised her foot and stepped on the two people below. Boom! The huge toad legs suddenly attacked Sakura and Konohamaru, bringing up a large cloud of smoke and dust. That is to say, Sakura reacted, and when she was about to be stepped on, she grabbed Konohamaru's collar and ran out. She suddenly discovered that giant toad is still chasing them. Naruto, what are you doing? Brother, what are you doing? Sakura felt the impact behind her and was almost scared to death. Konohamaru beside her was crying and shouting. The two had no doubt that Naruto planned to kill both of them here. And at this moment, they heard Naruto's voice. Brother Sakura, Konohamaru, why are you running? Come for my psychic beast. Naruto's tone was very serious, but it could be seen from the rising and falling corners of his mouth that he was holding back very hard. Brother Naruto, I don't understand. This is too dangerous. That's right. Naruto, are you going to kill us? Chapter 86 Sage of Six Paths. What's going on with this white-haired boy? Konohamaru and Sakura truly experienced the true meaning of death under Naruto's intense training. If Naruto hadn't taken out the healing items in time in the end, they would have really had to go to the hospital for 10 days and a half. However, because Naruto was driving a psychic beast to wreak havoc in Konoha village, the Umbu ninja brought Naruto and Jiraiya to the Hokage office again. As a master, Jiraiya could not escape the blame, so the third generation had no choice but to meet Jiraiya. To punish the duo, third generation asked them to restore the destroyed venue. And without using Shadow Clone, the master and apprentice were asked to clean up the men's bathhouse in Konoha village as punishment. Traitor, I've only been away for half a day. Look at the good things you did. Jiraiya suddenly threw the mop in his hand to the ground, pointed at Naruto, and started to curse. Although he likes places like bathhouses, it doesn't mean that he likes to come here to clean up. And it's also a men's bathhouse. Jiraiya felt so wronged. He honestly found a place to take a nap all afternoon, and without even taking out the crystal ball to look at, he followed Naruto to the office and was scolded by third generation. I'm giving special training to Brother Sakura and Konohamaru, and it's still on my own training ground. What's wrong with me? Naruto spoke righteously, with a serious expression on his face, but also a bit of pride. To be honest, he was in a good mood after his revenge. Just treat things like bathing as a daily practice. It's easier than dragging a tree anyway. You still have the nerve to say that. Then why did you let Bunta draw the sword? Do you know how many houses in Konoha village have collapsed? Jiraiya was so angry that he couldn't stand still. He found a wall and sat down against it. He now saw that Naruto, the child, had a severe head pain. If he didn't keep an eye on this kid, he was really worried that Naruto would cause some trouble later and implicate him as well. He really wanted to ask the Watergates, why does Naruto have a more difficult character than Kushina? Just a few houses. I spent my own money to buy them new houses. Naruto put his hands on his hips, not realizing his fault at all, and Jiraiya's blood pressure suddenly rose. Jiraiya's eyes widened and he opened his mouth, but no words came out for a while. He really wants to cause trouble for Kakashi and the third generation old man now. Especially Kakashi. Just like the old man from third generation, I keep avoiding him. Jiraiya rubbed his temples, exhaled, and then said, forget it. My teacher, I will be punished with you this time. I hope you can learn from this lesson and not do it again next time. Also, don't use necromancy in the village next time. Do you understand? Oh, definitely next time. Naruto nodded obediently and said that this kind of thing would not happen again next time. Okay, let's move quickly and try to finish cleaning tonight. Jiraiya smiled with relief and suddenly felt that Naruto, the child, could be saved. At least I can still hear myself talking. At night, the light shines on the master and the apprentice, reflecting two shadows, one large and one small. You can still hear the laughter of master and apprentice outside the bathhouse. Grandpa, are you psychic? I want to learn this. Late at night, as the third Hokage returned home from work, he saw his grandson Konohamaru running up to him and making a whoosh. As soon as he heard the three words, necromancy, his eyes darkened. Naruto, that kid, learned the art of necromancy and destroyed a large forest in the village, destroying 8 houses and 7 stores. It was just that none of these people were at home in the afternoon, or they responded in time, and no casualties were caused. Otherwise, he really doesn't know how to wipe the butt of Naruto. Now, Konohamaru also started clamoring to learn psychic skills. Third generation's blood pressure rose again. He quickly took out the leftover pills he had taken in the afternoon from his pocket and swallowed the pills tremblingly. Then he looked at Konohamaru and said seriously, Konohamaru, it's still too reluctant for you to learn necromancy at your age. I'm an old man who probably doesn't have many more years to live. I'll leave my psychic skills and the ninjutsu at home to you. Third generation said with a kind smile. Recently, for some reason, he always had a premonition that his life was about to end. Okay, Grandpa really loves me the most. When Konohamaru heard this, he happily wiped his nose and kept jumping around the third generation. Third generation caressed his beard gently, his face full of love, and he kept sighing in his heart. Konohamaru is still very sensible. Just a few seconds after he sighed, third generation heard Konohamaru say something that made his blood pressure soar. Grandpa, when will you die? You brat. The third generation chuckled and was made happy by Konohamaru on the spot, and raised his hand to knock him on the head. Then he put his hands behind his back and walked home. Konohamaru rubbed his head and grinned. He knew that his grandfather loved him the most. Looking at his grandfather's old figure, he chased after him again, running to third generation's feet and jumping up and down. Grandpa, let me tell you, Brother Naruto is awesome. I've become a lot stronger recently under the training of Big Brother. At the bathhouse late at night, Naruto and Jiraiya spent the whole night finally cleaning all the men's bathhouses in the village. Jiraiya looked at Naruto sitting next to him and stood up holding his knees. Hey Naruto, would you like some popsicles? What? Wait for me here. Jiraiya patted Naruto on the shoulder, showed a hearty smile, stepped on his clogs, and walked out of the bathhouse in a swagger. Naruto looked at the white-haired Leiden's back and was slightly startled. A smile appeared on the corner of his mouth at some point. There are many roads. At this moment, a familiar voice suddenly appeared in the corner calling his name. Naruto looked at the corner with a speechless expression. White-haired Zhou Ming. Did you leave your vocal cords at home? White-haired Kakashi's head poked out from the wall at this time. When he poked his head, he looked around for fear that a certain white-haired man was here. Naruto, that Jiraiya-sama shouldn't be here, right? Going shopping. Why are you looking for me so late? When Naruto saw Kakashi's cautious look, he knew that he didn't dare to see the old white-haired man. Even if he has trouble with me, he will climb up the wall and sneak around. That, stakes and statues. Kakashi had some embarrassment on his face. After all, it wasn't long before he came to find Naruto last time, and he came here to find the child again today. I feel really sorry. However, after Kakashi saw his father again last time and chatted for a few words, he became more convinced of the efficacy of Naruto's stake. This time he wanted to use the stake to see if he could find a Beto. Naruto had a strange expression and asked Kakashi up and down. He really didn't know whether to explain the situation clearly to Kakashi. Good guy. Isn't by Mao Zongdan addicted to death? I wonder how the Six Paths demon will react when he sees a certain white-haired person constantly traveling between life and death. Well, teacher Kakashi, you'd better eat less of this stuff. After saying that, Naruto took out the stake and the totem of immortality and handed them to Kakashi. Well, don't worry. I know it well. Kakashi took the things, waved goodbye, hugged the statue, and left the scene quickly. Chapter 87I. Uzumaki Naruto will never cause trouble. Gada Jiraiya, wearing wooden clogs and holding a plastic bag in his hand, appeared in front of Naruto, who was in a daze. Naruto, here you go. He tore open the popsicle package, broke it gently, divided the popsicle into two, and handed it to Naruto. After taking the popsicle, Naruto looked at Jiraiya, and after a long time he spoke. Thank you, Jiraiya-sensei. To be honest, the popsicle doesn't taste very good, and it can't be compared with the stuff in the system. Perhaps because of his master's care, Naruto felt extremely smooth after eating the popsicle, and he didn't look at the white-haired old man in front of him as unpleasantly as before. From now on, let's not call him Bai Mao Laoding. Seeing Naruto's appearance, Jiraiya reached out and rubbed his head. Haha, you kid. This time Naruto didn't hide and allowed Jiraiya's big hand to rub his head. Naruto, do you want to learn a powerful jutsu? The kind that's even more powerful than necromancy. In these days, it was the first time that Jiraiya had seen this child so quiet, and he could not help but think of Naruto's deceased father. The golden shining face and the figure using Rasengan kept flashing in his mind. Jiraiya decided to teach his father's own ninjutsu Rasengan with him. Wait for me at the training ground tomorrow. Jiraiya stood up and threw the garbage aside, then turned and smiled at Naruto. Naruto was stunned for 3 seconds, his eyes widened. Lao Deng, pick up the trash for me. Jiraiya, damn it, this kid is still different from Minato. Jiraiya's eyes twitched, he bent down helplessly, picked up the garbage on the ground, and threw it obediently into the trash can. See you tomorrow then. Jiraiya turned around, waved his hand, and left without looking back. He was afraid that continuing to stay would destroy the atmosphere that the master and apprentice had worked so hard to create. See you tomorrow. Naruto murmured and found that many of the snacks Jiraiya had just bought were still beside him. He looked at the bag of snacks in trance. It's really strange. This is the first time in years that someone has bought me these things. Naruto sat alone for 2 minutes and looked at the time. It was already 12 o'clock in the evening. He picked up the snack bag beside him, opened the door, and returned home. The next day, Naruto came to the training ground early in the morning to wait. As soon as he arrived, he found Jiraiya sitting on the ground, holding a crystal ball and enjoying himself. There are many balloons beside him. Although this LSP was peeping early in the morning, Naruto still had a good impression of Jiraiya's late behavior. At least it's better than some white-haired Zongdan. Jiraiya looked shocked when he saw the purple light door. He raised his finger and pointed at Naruto and said hesitantly, "You this? Are you a space-time ninjutsu? Hold head high. Didn't the old man from third generation tell you?" Jiraiya's face froze. He was angry now when he thought of that bad old man. He had only seen the old man a few times since he returned to the village. Twice before and after, he and Naruto were still called over to be lectured. The old man from third generation still seemed to be avoiding him. Where can I find out the specific situation of Naruto? This was the first time Jiraiya saw Naruto using this ability. He immediately became interested, put away the crystal ball, and stood up and said, "Use it again and let me see." Oh, Naruto raised his hand and threw out 2 light gates, ducked in, and appeared not far away. After showing it back and forth several times, Jiraiya asked him to stop. It's not as good as Minato's flying thunder technique. Jiraiya pinched his chin and sighed. After watching it for a while, he finally figured out what Naruto's technique was like. Generally speaking, ninjutsu in this time and space is good. However, it takes time for the light gate to unfold, and it is not as instant as the flying thunder god. When fighting enemies, the first few sneak attacks are okay. Once someone finds out his ability, the enemy will immediately use this technique to deal with Naruto. Jiraiya thought for a while and decided to go find the old man to get the flying thunder god technique when he had time and give it to Naruto. Maybe Naruto could become a more powerful ninja than his father. Or maybe Naruto is the son of destiny that he has been searching for. Jiraiya-sensei, aren't you going to learn new ninjutsu? Seeing Jiraiya in a daze, Naruto raised his hand and waved it in front of him. You keep an eye on it." Jiraiya came back to his senses, opened his palms, and in the blink of an eye a blue ball appeared in his palms. Then he shouted and pressed the ball in his hand against the tree trunk next to him. Wow, after a loud noise, sawdust flew into the air, leaving a large hole in the tree trunk. There are also spiral patterns in the pit. This ninjutsu was created by your father. A-level Muji Ninjutsu Rasengan. Naruto's eyes lit up. He had been waiting for this moment for a long time. You must know that there is more than just one form of making meatballs. As long as you add some chakra changes, you can play many tricks. From the story of Boruto, Momo Lama even started rolling balls, which is enough to show the power of this ninjutsu. Sharp, hearing his disciples' praise, Jiraiya's face showed no signs of abnormality, but his heart was filled with joy. Ahem. Listen carefully. This is what you will do next. After Jiraiya finished explaining the essentials of Rasengan, he threw a balloon filled with water to Naruto. Try. Use chakra to explode this ball. Before he could finish his words, he saw Naruto burst the water ball and the water splashed all over him. Traitor, what are you doing? I asked you to use chakra. I'm not asking you to use your strength. I couldn't control it. Naruto scratched his head. A bit of embarrassment flashed in his eyes. It's not that he can't control his own power. Mainly, there are spherical objects on my hands, and I can't help but pinch them. And this pinch directly burst the water polo. Jiraiya took a deep breath and threw another water ball to Naruto. However, after several times, the result is still the same as before. You kid, use chakra. Chakra. Jiraiya was really driven crazy by Naruto. He threw a rubber ball just now, but the boy's pinching was no different from a water ball, and it also exploded as soon as he pinched it. Again, I try my best to control. Naruto also didn't expect that his first step in practicing Rasengan would be defeated by instinct. Well, you practice well. I'll leave for a while. Jiraiya sighed, feeling that his blood pressure would rise if he continued to stay. In order not to become the next medicine pot, Jiraiya planned to leave first. However, he explained for 2 full minutes before leaving, for fear that Naruto, the kid, would do something wrong again. When Naruto saw Jiraiya leaving, he formed a seal with his hands and transformed into 100 clones. Brothers, it's time for liver experience. Ouch. At the order of the main body, many shadow clone began to practice Rasengan. 2 hours later, with the help of his clones, Naruto finally completed the water polo, leather ball, and rubber ball training. At this moment, he was finally about to officially start making balls. Naruto felt that he did not need the assistance of the clone like in the original work. With his control, it should be a matter of minutes to roll a ball with one hand. Okay, come on. Naruto rubbed his face, whispered encouragement to himself, then spread his palms and began to condense chakra. Buzz under his precise control, the blue ball soon appeared in his hand. Just when Naruto was happy, he suddenly noticed something different about his balls. Unlike Jiraiya's Rasengan, there was no spiral condensed in Naruto's hand, only pure chakra. Moreover, the condensed sphere is still enlarging. Kid, stop it. Kurama, who was reading a book, was so frightened when he saw Naruto's behavior outside. What kind of dangerous thing is this kid doing again? Just as Naruto was about to ask, he suddenly felt a powerful impact. There was also a deafening sound in my ears. Boom, a huge blue ball of light rose over the training ground. After the explosion, a mushroom cloud appeared over Konoha. Chapter 88, the white-haired old man has the upper hand. Oh, Master Jiraiya hasn't been here for a long time. That's right. Haha, I've been busy lately. Jiraiya was sitting in a custom shop in Konoha village, drinking a small drink handed to him by the people around him and laughing. It's really not easy. He has never been so happy since meeting Naruto. Jiraiya took a nice sip of wine and felt extremely comfortable, as if all his worries had disappeared at this moment. Just as Jiraiya was enjoying it, he suddenly heard a loud noise, and then the whole earth shook. Boom! Oh no! There was an explosion on the east side of the village. Inform third-generation Sama quickly. A huge explosion sounded, and everyone in Konoha village looked to the east of the village at the same time. That place is very familiar to everyone. This is the location of Konoha's training ground. A few days ago, the house of someone who lived on the east side of the village was unfortunately broken into pieces by a big toad. From that day on, Konoha villagers did not dare to live near that area. Those who used to live there also hurriedly moved out. Jiraiya, who was drinking flower wine in the custom shop, first heard the explosion from the outside, and then heard the noise and chaos of the crowd outside the shop. With the drink in his mouth, Jiraiya was not in the same mood as before. There was a thump in my heart, and an alarm bell rang in my mind. No, it's not. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Jiraiya shook his head and stumbled out of the custom shop door. As soon as he took a step out of the gate, he saw the mushroom cloud over the east side of the village. FK! Jiraiya jumped up on the spot and cursed on spot. This traitor! I've only been away for less than 2 hours. Death or death. But from his current position, it can be seen that the scale of the explosion is not small. Yesterday, this child used psychic skills to destroy other people's houses, and now he has made such a move. Jiraiya suddenly felt like another huge scapegoat had been placed on his head. No, I have to go out and get out of the limelight first. Without any hesitation, he turned around and ran out of the village. Anyway, this matter has nothing to do with him. He really didn't want to go to the Hokage office and be scolded by the old man again. So, Jiraiya skillfully walked out of the village, and no ninja noticed that the white-haired old man ran out. It hurts. At this time, Naruto climbed up from the pothole in a daze, and all his clothes had disappeared in the explosion. The original Uzumaki Naruto's exclusive training ground east of the village has now become a scorched land. Perhaps the only thing that made the Konoha villagers happy was that the explosion had not affected the village yet. Taking out the clothes from the system and putting them on, Naruto straightened his clothes and felt that the injuries on his body were not as painful as before. What just happened? Just now he was practicing Rasengan on the spot and found that the Rasengan was not spinning. And then he heard Kurama reminding him. And then it became like this. Kid, are you really not afraid of death? In the sealed space, Kurama said angrily. When it was reading just now, it suddenly noticed something strange about chakra in the outside world. It glanced outside and almost threw the book in its hand out of fright. Rasengan was used by Minato. But this boy Naruto, it's not Rasengan at all. It was completely stacking and compressing a large amount of chakra. If it hadn't reminded Naruto in time just now. It is estimated that the explosion range is not limited to what it is now. At that time, the entire Konoha village, including Naruto himself, will be blown up to the sky. Boohoo Konoha Genin appeared nearby one after another. When the third generation saw the scene, they really wanted to faint on the spot. Even Kakashi came running. Naruto, what the hell are you doing? Didn't I forbid you from studying ninjutsu a long time ago? Why is it still like this? Third generation cursed while taking medicine, and his breathing was even more rapid. Ever since Naruto was researching the wind release and blood blast, he banned the kid from doing new ninjutsu in the village. This kid doesn't have much awareness of destructive power, and he has more chakra than himself. Third generation didn't need to think too much to know that this kid wanted to study ninjutsu and wanted to use all the chakra. This kid doesn't know how to use the tailed beast chakra. Otherwise, everyone will really finish playing together. Asuma, Kurenai, and several other Jonin beside him cast their eyes at Kakashi at the same time, seeming to suspect that Kakashi was responsible for all this. At the same time, he was thinking about whether to keep his disciples away from this yellow hair. Kakashi held his eyes open and was speechless. Mud, why are you looking at me? This matter has nothing to do with me. I haven't studied ninjutsu either. It's Jiraiya-sensei. He taught me the A-level ninjutsu Rasengan, the one the fourth Hokage uses. Third generation, Kakashi. Naruto was afraid that everyone would misunderstand, so he emphasized Rasengan and said that he had not researched new ninjutsu. When everyone heard Jiraiya's name, they temporarily looked away from Kakashi, but when they heard the Rasengan technique, everyone looked at Kakashi again. It seems to be saying, how could Rasengan make such a move on horseback? Third generation took out a cigarette stick and puffed away at Asuma. Where's Jiraiya? Go find him. Third generation thought for a long time, but couldn't figure out why this Rasengan acted like this for Naruto. So they were going to find trouble with Jiraiya first. After receiving the order, the Umbu ninja immediately disappeared and went to find Jiraiya. However, the third generation had no idea that Jiraiya had slipped out of the village to avoid the limelight the moment it exploded. Naruto, right away, restore this place to its original state. You are now prohibited from continuing to practice this ninjutsu in the village. If you want to practice, open the door and go out to practice. Third generation is really worried. This kid used a psychic beast to wreak havoc in the village yesterday, and today he caused a big explosion. He was really afraid that this boy would let the tailed beast out tomorrow. Konoha can't afford such a waste. Naruto nodded, feeling that what third generation said made sense. But what worries him now is, why? Why is the Rasengan I use different from the one used by Mao Laodan? Third generation glanced at the surrounding environment and felt mixed emotions. He knew he couldn't control Naruto, the kid, but couldn't he still control Jiraiya? After warning Naruto to clean up, third generation waved his hand and signaled everyone to disperse. But when his eyes moved to a certain white hair, his expression suddenly changed. Kakashi, come back to the office with me. I have something to ask you. Kakashi? No, this has a trading relationship with me. Chapter 89, Tachibana's Great Meeting. Naruto spent most of the day restoring the training ground to its original state. Fortunately, this situation is not too difficult for him. If it were Yamato, he would probably be blinded if he saw the scene being so scorching. In the evening, Kakashi found Naruto again and took away the stake and statue. Even for Metkai, Kakashi asked Naruto to get an extra bottle of recovery potion. After Shao Li fought against Gaara, he lay in a hospital as if he was disabled. The hospital said that if they want to cure him, they must find Tsunade, one of the Sannin, otherwise the child will have to lie in the hospital and stare at the ceiling in a daze for the rest of his life. Finally, when Kakashi heard this, he thought of the potion that Naruto had given him before. Of course, his main priority was to find Naruto to get stakes and statues. Counting the previous times, he has dreamed of the deceased 3 times. But I just didn't see Obito. He even met Uchiha Fugaku and chatted with him about Sasuke's situation. Fugaku's furious look once made Kakashi think that he had really gone to the Pure Land. I'm going back. Naruto, when you practice Rasengan, remember not to do it in the village. Kakashi hugged the statue and was about to leave when he suddenly remembered what happened today and reminded the child again. Okay, I understand. You've said that for the 7th time today. Naruto waved his hand to signal him to disappear from his eyes. After watching Shirogane Nakanobu leave, Naruto opened a light door and ran to a deserted place outside the wave country, preparing to continue practicing Rasengan. Naruto opened his palms and began to condense chakra. After the last big explosion, he did not dare to increase the dosage rashly. Instead, he observed the operation of chakra in his body and the ball in his hand. This caused Naruto to forget to rotate the ball in his hand again. Buzz, the violent chakra appeared in his hands again, but this time Naruto felt that he could suppress the power in his hands. He even felt like he could launch the ball in his hand. The meatballs became brighter and brighter, and they were about to explode in the next moment. Kurama, who was always keeping an eye on this kid, spoke. "Kid, throw out what you're holding." Hearing teacher Jio's words, Naruto threw the blue ball of light in his hand without saying a word. But after waving his hands for a long time, the meatballs were like glue and just couldn't be shaken out. Angry, Naruto increased the chakra output again. He was ready to launch the blue ball of light. Boom, a blue light shot out from Naruto's hand, and the light passed through everything in front of him without any hindrance. When Naruto saw this scene, his expression became even weirder. This? Why? Is this so similar to the turtle-style Kigon wave? To be honest, he really wanted to learn Wanzi. After all, there's no reason why the ancestral balls should be discontinued in his generation, Uzumaki Naruto. When Kurama in the sealed space saw Naruto using this technique, he raised his eyebrows and showed a little excitement in his eyes. Rasengan is an imitation of tailed beast jade. He knows this. And Naruto's technique. Very strong, even stronger than Minato's Rasengan. Although I don't know how this kid did it. It just simulated it in its mind and found that it can also achieve this effect with the tailed beast jade. The power is even stronger than what Naruto used. Very good. This technique will belong to me from now on. Shall I try it with both hands? Naruto muttered to himself, and the expression on his face became excited. Glancing at the hillock not far away, he clasped his hands together and moved them to his waist, shouting word by word. Turtle Pie Key Gong Wave. The next second, blue light burst out in my hand. With the first successful experiment, Naruto directly increased the chakra output with confidence. At the moment when the chakra light group in your hand is about to lose control, push your hand forward suddenly. Then the chakra light group condensed in his hand transformed into a blue-white light pillar, which shot straight towards the hill not far away, while the light beams struck dozens of meters and sank directly into the hill. It passed through without any hindrance and extended back to 100 meters before the light beam disappeared. Kurama in the sealed space felt itchy when he saw this. It wanted to try this with its own tailed beast jade to see how powerful it would be. Naruto, come in. Naruto was still immersed in the joy of having just learned the turtle-style Kigon wave. When he heard the big fox say this without coming, he was naturally a little confused. However, he still obediently sank his consciousness into the sealed space and came to the big fox. Looking at the fox in front of him, Naruto's expression was almost that of third generation. Naruto, stretch out your hand. Oh! Naruto obediently raised his hand and placed it in front of the big fox. Seeing this, Kurama stretched out his big hand and gently fist-bumped Naruto's small hand. Naruto, remember, my name is Kurama. Kurama's voice came to his ears, and Naruto's consciousness instantly exited the sealed space. He was shocked to find that he was surrounded by a red chakra. Spreading his hands, Naruto also found red bubbles constantly coming out of his body. Those bubbles kept rising like the soda I drank. Apparently, chakra is unimaginable at this moment. He could tell at a glance that the big fox was cheating on him. This is the tailed beast outerwear. Naruto, release your consciousness and let me control you. Hearing the voice of the big fox, Naruto relaxed his mind without any resistance and temporarily handed over control of his body to the big fox. Although he didn't know what the big fox was going to do, With so many years of friendship, he believed that the big fox wouldn't harm him. Just when he was relaxing, he suddenly found that his hands were closed and slowly moved to his waist. Ah, the big fox also wants to play turtle style, Kigong waves. Naruto, watch carefully. This is how this technique works. As soon as the big fox's voice came out, black light groups appeared on Naruto's hands. Damn it, Tail Beast Jade. The big fox is playing so big. The black light condensed in his hand. He could tell at a glance that it was the tailed beast's signature trick. Seeing him, his scalp was numb, and alarm bells were ringing in his heart. The blue chakra light group that he condensed exploded and could not kill him. But if this thing explodes on the spot, he should consider whether the old man from Six Paths will leave early. Just as Naruto was thinking wildly, Kurama had already controlled Naruto's hands to push forward, and a black beam of light shot forward instantly. The black beam of light rushed toward the hill like a torrent. Naruto only felt a flash of white light before his eyes, and then his ears buzzed. And that hill, when Kurama's tailed beast Jade, turtle-style Kigong wave came down the mountain, it was blown up. Seeing this technique used by the big fox, Naruto slapped its fart without hesitation. Takami Kizuza, Chapter 90 Brothering. The 50-50 opener will receive an epic level of enhancement, thanks to Ranzawuzi for the reward. A month goes by in a blink of an eye. Naruto successfully mastered the tailed beast Jade, turtle school, Kigong wave under the guidance of Kizuza. Compared with the initial beam of light emitted from his hand, Naruto can now continuously output it for 5 seconds. No matter how long the time was, he didn't dare to try. Teacher Gyo said that if it exceeded 5 seconds, he would easily die suddenly. However, if you want to use this technique, you still need to enter tailed beast coat mode. So powerful. He has no idea. In the past month, he had plowed all the hills outside of waves, so much so that he no longer dared to appear outside waves. He actually asked the big fox, and he said that it was easy to beat one-tail Shikaku with tailed beast Jade and turtle-style Kigong waves. As for a certain white-haired old man, since teaching Rasengan that day, Naruto has never seen him again. He guessed that the guy was hiding near a bathhouse. On the other hand, it's Kakashi, the white-haired man, and I've been looking for him more and more recently. Naruto couldn't even remember how many steaks he took back to eat. In the last 2 weeks, it was not enough for Kakashi to eat 1 steak. He had to eat 2 steaks before he could go to the Pure Land. Naruto felt quite hurt when he heard that. Now he can only eat 3 such steaks at most a day, and that white-haired Jonding had to resist forcibly. Hey, good morning, Naruto. Kakashi, who was carrying the short sword on his back, said hello from the tree, then got off the tree. Naruto glanced at the short sword behind Kakashi, slightly surprised. What on earth did Bai Mao Zongdan go to the Pure Land to do? Is it possible that White Fang can still teach Kakashi swordsmanship in the Pure Land? To be honest, Naruto was actually quite curious about what Kakashi did when he went to the Pure Land. But whenever he asked, Kakashi would always wave his hands and shake his head, avoiding talking. Sighing, Naruto took out the steak and statue again. It's just that this Naruto directly took out a week's worth. Kakashi glanced at the neatly arranged statues and steaks on the ground, and his eyes instantly shone. Etc. Kakashi-sensei, where is your Sharingan? At this time, Naruto suddenly noticed something was wrong. Not only was Kakashi carrying the short sword behind his back, but he also had the blindfold on his eyes. The Scarlet Sharingan has turned into dark pupils. You detained Sharingan? Naruto was shocked. Moreover, he also felt that Bai Mao Zongdan had been dead more recently and his salty fish temperament was gone. You said this. Kakashi touched his eyes gently, his expression a little complicated. A few days ago, when he was training swordsmanship with his father in his dream, he woke up and found that his Sharingan could be closed. It can also be opened freely like the Uchiha family. Not only that, he also discovered that his Sharingan evolved from the 3 Magatama. After consulting a large amount of information, Kakashi realized that he had opened the Manjiki Sharingan of the Uchiha clan. This makes him want to find Obito in his dream even more. Kakashi planned to tell him the good news and use his eyes to see the world. Just close the Sharingan. Uzumaki Naruto. What nonsense is by Zhou Ming talking about? You are Hitaki Kakashi, not Uchiha Kakashi. Naruto looked in disbelief when he heard this. Seeing his appearance, Kakashi simply opened the Mangeki and showed it to the child. Well, it's become like this. Hiss. Mangeki. Naruto's face became even more strange when he saw Kakashi's Mangeki. No way. Is it possible to open Mangeki after too many deaths? Or, when will Sasuke try it too? Then will chakra be enough for you in the future? Naruto suddenly realized the key issue and looked up at Kakashi. Chakra has increased a lot recently. Thanks for the food. Naruto was slightly startled, turning his head and not daring to look at Kakashi. He didn't even know how to tell Kakashi the truth. And, is it possible that you died too many times to become what you are now? Big Fox, look how much chakra Kakashi has. Kurama, who was reading a book, raised his eyelids impatiently. What catches your eyes? Isn't it just 30 weight? How did his chakra become a 300 demon? Ninetails was slightly surprised. Obviously, the last time I saw this white hair, he was still a 30-year-old kid. Why did his chakra suddenly increase so much now? Naruto was not too surprised when he heard what the big fox said. After all, Shirage Nakato now has Mangeki open, and he can also take the initiative to shut down the mana-consuming Sharingan. No matter how you think about it, there should be no shortage of chakra. If Baimao Zongden works harder, he will catch up with his 900 magic self. So scary. Could it be that the 55-year-old title will disappear in the future? Kakashi ignored Naruto, who was standing there in a daze, took out the sealing scroll, and sealed the things on the ground. By the way, Naruto, don't forget to take the last test tomorrow. Who is the first contestant? After coming back to his senses, Naruto looked up at Kakashi. He doesn't want to take any crappy Chunin exam at all. And against Hinata, how to fight this? It doesn't matter if you take action, and it doesn't matter if you don't take action. He was really afraid that if he beat Hinata and hurt her, his wife would domestically abuse him after marriage. Sasuke versus Gaara of Sunagakure Village. What? Very good. Naruto immediately felt happy. Doesn't this mean that all subsequent battles are suspended? I'm going back. Also, Sakura asked you to go to the hospital to find her. Kakashi put away the scroll and couldn't help but ignore Naruto's nonsense. All he wants now is to find Obito and share the good news that he has opened Mangeki with Obito. Brothering, Naruto scratched his chin, threw it out of the space door, and headed to the hospital. Because of the special training given to Brother Sakura and Konohamaru before, Brother Sakura had a grudge against him. In order to get Brother Ing to agree to the marriage between his son and her daughter in the future, Naruto gave Brother Ing a complete set of mathematics, physics, and chemistry books. I think she should be able to master this knowledge quickly based on her academic profile. But Naruto was worried about turning Sakura into the next Orochimaru. Brother Ing, what do you want from me? As soon as he arrived at the hospital, Naruto saw Brother Ing sitting on a chair, holding a screwdriver in his hand and swinging a strange arm guard. Seeing Naruto appear, the girl took off her arm guard with excitement and put it in front of Naruto's eyes. Naruto, look! I used the books you gave me, combined with ninjutsu, to develop a ninja tool that could be released automatically. I'm going to name this thing Scientific Ninja Tool. Naruto, huh? Chapter 91, Why Did Sasuke Major in Fire Style? Welcome to the third Chunin exam. The first battle is from Konoha Village Uchiha Shaoyan Bing Sasuke. Fight against Gaara of Sunagakure Village. Viewers, let me hear your screams. Naruto Uzumaki cosplays the event, Ninetails Ari, holding a microphone, stepping on the floating door panel, broadcasting the event loudly. This was very painful for Uzumaki Kyo-fong, who was on the ground with his camera, looking for Naruto. Not only does he carry the camera, he also carries his own stereo. Of course, this behavior is spontaneous. As the organizer of the Chunin exam, Konoha does not approve of this behavior. When the third Hokage and the fourth generation Kazekage saw this guy floating in the air, their faces were speechless. This kind of unreliable behavior, as well as the iconic yellow hair, third generation didn't need to think too much to know that it was caused by Naruto's kid. Especially Naruto's clone. In just a few words, he can arouse the atmosphere of the audience. Naruto, Naruto, Naruto. The villagers sitting in the audience waved their hands and shouted for Naruto. Everyone was deeply fascinated by this girl the first time they saw her. However, they didn't know that this popular girl was transformed by a certain yellow hair. Naruto-kun, that one is. Hinata turned her head and looked at Naruto next to her with great confusion. It's a long story. Naruto's head hurt as much as third generations when he saw this scene. Facing his wife's questioning, Naruto immediately chose to take out snacks and cover her mouth. Elder sister, Hyuga Hanabi, a little lowly, saw her sister nestling in Huang Mao's arms, talking and laughing while eating, and her silver teeth were almost broken. In her opinion, it was that Uzumaki Naruto guy who stole her sister. Naruto, why hasn't Sasuke come yet? Sakura, who was sitting next to her, was almost fed by the dog food of these two people. She just wanted to see Sasuke now. Since the last time Mr. Kakashi took Sasuke away, Sakura has not seen him for almost a month. Well, that's not coming. After Naruto finished feeding Hinata, he pointed to the high wall in the distance. Sakura looked along the direction and saw Sasuke in black robes. He was hanging on a high wall outside the game. His motionless appearance once again made the girl Sakura blush. Moonlight Gale coughed twice and announced his arrival at the competition venue. Cough, cough, cough. Two candidates are invited to enter the examination room. Naruto was in a good mood when he saw Moonlight Hate again on the field, but he noticed that this guy's eyes were dark and his cheekbones were prominent. I just don't know what he has been through these days. At the location of Sunagakure village, Gaara stepped into the arena step by step with a gourd on his back. Although his face was expressionless, the fighting spirit could be seen in his eyes. Swish Sasuke, who was hanging on the wall, did somersaults in the air and landed safely with a thud. I waited for you a long time. Then, without further ado, Sasuke was afraid that Gaara would say that name. So he put on a cold expression and instantly broke his skills and spoke to interrupt Gaara. Game start. With the announcement of Moonlight Hate, Sasuke disappeared from the spot immediately and took the lead in launching the attack. Several figures of Sasuke instantly appeared on the scene, and each figure was accompanied by lightning flashes. Naruto, who was sitting in the audience, looked at Sasuke's figure below in a daze for a moment. Mate, this guy's lightning style looks more and more like the genuine Senkian Lei Dong. From the figures that appeared around Gaara, it was not difficult to see that those were not Sasuke's lightning clones, but simply afterimages caused by his too fast speed. Swish, swish Gaara remained expressionless, because he firmly believed that no one could get close to him. Fire Style Phoenix Sage Fire Jutsu. Sasuke's figure suddenly appeared in the sky above Gaara, forming seals at a speed that no one else could see clearly. As soon as Gaara raised his head, he saw flames like petals shooting towards the top of his head. He raised his hand slightly, and the sand in the gourd seemed to be given life, actively blocking Sasuke's attack. Seeing that Sasuke was unsuccessful, he disappeared again and kept appearing in all directions of Gaara. Fire Style Dragon Flame Technique. Fire Style Phoenix Sage Fire Jutsu. Fire Style Great Fireball Technique. Since acquiring Orochimaru's Curse Seal, Sasuke's chakra amount has skyrocketed, and now he doesn't have to mentally calculate it before using ninjutsu. He planned to use ninjutsu to blast the opponent first, and then go forward to engage the enemy in close combat. Facing Sasuke's fire style attack, Gaara's whole body was quickly covered with sand, and then formed a sphere to resist the attack. Ha 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 ha. After releasing the ninjutsu, Sasuke suddenly laughed. He understood that his ninjutsu could not break the opponent's defense for the time being. Sasuke slowly took off the mysterious ruler behind him and continued talking. Let me use weapons. I recognize your strength. Just when Sasuke took out the Shinjonji to show off, sand and gravel burst out of the ground, covering Sasuke in the blink of an eye. Two maracas, one large and one small, also appeared at the scene. Sand Waterfall Funeral. Gaara, who was hiding in the sandball, made a fist with one hand and controlled the sand, intending to kill Sasuke here. Sasuke. The most excited person was Brother Ing on the stage. When he saw Sasuke covered in sand, he got up and shouted anxiously. Naruto glanced at Brother Sakura and kept feeding Hinata with his hands. Brother Ing, calm down. Sasuke didn't even open the Sharingan just now. But even though she heard what Naruto said, Sakura still couldn't let go that Sasuke was nowhere to be seen. Hinata, who was eating, suddenly spoke up. He's fine. Naruto nodded in agreement, but noticed that Hinata didn't open her Byakugan at all. Hinata, can you see like this? Oh, let me open your eyes. Naruto-kun, don't get too close. Brother Ing and Hanabi felt so sick that they wanted to vomit when they saw the two people's disgusted looks. Bang with a loud noise. Sasuke put the Schwanzhong ruler on his shoulder, and the scarlet 3 Magatama Sharingan stared at Gaara coldly. Red hair. Next time, remember to let your opponent finish his sentence. When Gaara saw this guy break free from his sand waterfall to be buried, there was no sleepiness in his eyes anymore. It was all shock to this guy. He has killed many people over the years and encountered many powerful enemies. I really haven't met anyone who can carry the sand waterfall to the funeral. When Gaara was stunned, Sasuke had already placed a Schwanzhong ruler across his chest. He formed a seal with his right hand. The fire-style chakra in his hand continued to spread, and then touched the Xianzhong ruler. With the blessing of fire style, the Xianzhong ruler instantly burned. The temperature at the venue continued to rise under the influence of Sasuke's technique, and the spectators close to the arena could already feel the heat wave hitting their faces. Try this trick. Sasuke raised the corner of his mouth slightly and flicked the burning Schwanzhong ruler in his hand. From a distance, it can be said to be quite oppressive. Naruto really wanted to complain when he saw this scene. Fool, were you Chidori? Seeing him take out the burning mysterious ruler, Naruto roughly guessed what move the kid was going to use. Oh, dash! The flames bite the wave ruler. Sasuke activated the 3,000 thunderbolts, dragging the flames, and came to Gaara in the blink of an eye. Gaara didn't even have time to react. At this moment, he could already smell the smell of burning hair. Sasuke grinned ferociously, turned around, and threw out a 5-meter-long flame that hit Gaara. Chapter 92 Ant Snake, who specializes in fighting the old man with 5 escapes, appears boom with a loud noise. Gaara flew straight out and hit the high wall of the arena before stopping. The powerful impact caused the wall behind Gaara to crack. Gaara, who had never been injured before, had a big gash on his forehead, and blood stained his entire field of vision. Tick! Gaara spread his hands in horror and found blood dripping from his hands, and the tailed beast chakra in his body instantly lost control. Kill you! I'm going to kill you! As the tailed beast chakra rioted, Gaara's injuries recovered instantly. However, half of his face turned into the shape of a civet cat. Cat demon. Facing the enemy who suddenly turned into a tanuki, Sasuke didn't seem too surprised. Even if he turned into a purple lion on the spot, he would not blink. Sasuke raised the Schwanzhong ruler towards Gaara, who had turned into a human and a cat, pointed at him, and said coldly, "Let me see your full strength. Under my Xianzhong ruler, all your efforts, it's all in vain." In the previous battle, Sasuke had relied on the Xianzhong ruler to restore his chakra. The current situation is simply better than before the war started. Just a cat demon. Just as Sasuke thought this, he saw the other person appear in front of him. So fast. Fortunately, Sharingan observed Sasuke in time and ducked Gaara's attack. Call out! Gaara, who transformed into a tailed beast, missed a single blow and stretched out his hand to hit Sasuke's abdomen with his wind release. Oh! Sasuke pulled away in time and held the Schwanzhong ruler in front of him. Still like this, he was still blown away by the powerful wind attack, just like Gaara just now. The only difference was that Sasuke wasn't injured. Nothing more than that. Sasuke slowly stood up from the ground and patted the dust off his body, his face even more disdainful. He is very confident in his own strength and the Xianzhong ruler that can restore chakra. Naruto sat on the stage and covered his face. Sasuke couldn't see being beaten in the audience. He was beaten away by Gaara just now. Chun-Chun was careless and underestimated the enemy. Although according to his current strength, he still can't FK the explosive Gaara. But with the combination of Shin Zonki and Sharingan, it is not difficult to tie with Gaara if the operation is good. No matter how bad Sasuke is, he can still rely on blood-sucking to avoid being killed by his opponent. But look at Sasuke, look at that Beyond. If you open your mouth, it's useless. If you close your mouth, you're just a cat monster. This would have been strange to Naruto if he hadn't been beaten violently. In the competition field, Gaara and Sasuke were fighting back and forth, but the furious Gaara had already started the third stage. The whole person has turned into Shikaku's appearance, and the sand on his body is flowing in the arena like water. Sasuke, who had just been able to tie with Gaara, gradually fell into a disadvantage. Naruto Uzumaki, who was broadcasting the match from high in the sky, shouted with a microphone. Second pillar, A is up. The second pillar was blown away by Gaara. The second pillar went up again. Naruto, shut up. I don't know if it's because Sasuke is too bad or because Naruto Uzumaki's commentary is too amateurish. Anyway, there were only a few words going back and forth. Naruto wanted to complain, but the audience around him listened happily. Orochimaru, who was in disguise, saw that the time was right, waved his hand, and threw the Kazekage hat on his head towards the third Hokage. You, Orochimaru, what are you going to do? Although the third generation is old, their reflexes are not inferior to those of young people. They turned around and dodged what Orochimaru threw. He looked at his former disciple, and his old face was full of complexity. At the same time, explosions occurred in every corner of Konoha village. Lord Hokage, protect Hokage-sama. Don't come up here. He is not something you can deal with. Leave Orochimaru to me. Inform everyone to go to the village to protect the villagers. The third Hokage raised his hand to stop the ninjas who were about to step forward. Once, I couldn't bear to kill Orochimaru because of the only remaining friendship between master and apprentice. Now, Orochimaru has come to Konoha to wreak havoc. He must deal with Orochimaru himself so that he can make up for the mistakes he has made. The third generation reached out and took off the Hokage robe on his body. When Orochimaru saw him assuming a fighting posture, he turned around and ran towards the roof. At this time, the sound ninjas under Orochimaru each used barriers in the corners, and the purple light shield quickly enveloped the positions of Orochimaru and the third generation. Naruto, take Hinata and Hanabi back. The next battle is not for you to participate in. Hyuga Hayashi came to Naruto and motioned him to open the door and take people out of the scene. Naruto glanced at Sasuke, who was being beaten, then looked at Lao Din and pretended to nod. While Hayashi Lao Din wasn't paying attention, Naruto raised his hand and threw the light gate behind him, kicking him into the light gate. Then he turned to Hinata and Sakura and said, Hinata, you and Hanabi go back first. Brothering, you are coming too. After throwing a few light doors around them, Sakura glanced at Sasuke and knew that she couldn't help much by staying here. It would be better to go to the hospital to rescue the injured. Hinata hugged Hanabi, looking hesitant, and reached out to grab the corner of Naruto's clothes. Naruto-kun, careful. Naruto pinched Hinata's cheek. Don't worry, nothing will happen. After getting confirmation, Hinata stepped into the light door. After seeing them go back, Naruto did not immediately go to rescue Sasuke, but opened a light door for Shikamaru and the others and sent them back. The Jonin and Kakashi are dealing with the miscellaneous fish brought by Orochimaru. Kai glanced at barriers from a distance and wanted to step forward, but was stopped by Kakashi. Kai, third generation Sama, is more than capable of dealing with Orochimaru. Follow third generation Sama's orders. We just need to stop those ninjas who are sneaking into Konoha to destroy it. The surrounding Jonin nodded at the same time. Everyone believed that the third Hokage was strong enough to deal with Orochimaru, and it was also his long-cherished wish for the rest of his life to deal with his defecting disciple with his own hands. During the competition, Sasuke was still immersed in a Chidori stabbing into the cat demon's chest, and then heard a shocking roar. Roar! Sasuke's blow to Chidori almost stabbed Gaara to death. Now Shikaku couldn't bear it anymore and wanted to come out and fight in his place, and teach the arrogant brat in front of him a lesson. As soon as Shikaku appeared, he opened his mouth and threw a tailed beast jade at Sasuke. Call out. Suddenly, a golden statue came towards Sasuke's position. In order to avoid the attack from Shikaku's mouth, Sasuke just made a dodge action and was thrown away by the statue. Sasuke hugged the statue. What? Naruto shouted, standing on the edge. The main reason for throwing the totem of undying is he saw a tailed beast jade in Shikaku's claw. Chapter 93 Fugaku. I know everything about you and Naruto. Thanks to the fried fish head for the reward. Sasuke was suddenly hit by the statue and fell into a state of confusion. However, he still did as Naruto said, wrapping his right hand around the statue and holding it firmly in his arms. Seeing this golden statue will inevitably remind you of the scene when Kakashi died. Just when Sasuke was lost for a moment, the tailed beast jade the size of fist came to his chest. By the time he noticed, it was too late. Oops. Can't escape. Move. Move quickly. The opponent's attack was too fast. When Sasuke saw this black ball, the pores all over his body felt like needles pricking him, and he was in danger. He knew in his heart that if he was hit by this thing, he would probably die. But now this situation, he could only watch the black ball flying towards him, unable to avoid it at all. The next moment, the tailed beast jade penetrated Sasuke's chest, and the huge power directly opened a hole in his chest. Thump! Sasuke held the mysterious ruler in his left hand and hugged the statue in his right hand, and he fell to the ground upright. Are you going to die here? Hateful. I haven't killed that man myself yet. As he lay dying, Sasuke felt infinite regret. Using all his strength, he turned his head and glanced at Naruto for the last time, smiling bitterly. His pupils were dilated, his eyes went dark, and he lost consciousness. Before his consciousness disappeared, he kept bidding farewell to this world in his heart. Goodbye, Naruto, Sakura, and Kakashi-sensei. What a shame. I haven't finished watching X Breaking the Sky yet. I haven't figured out the burning technique yet. I haven't killed Uchiha Itachi yet. He didn't know how long it had passed before he heard someone calling his name. Sasuke. Sasuke. A familiar voice kept ringing in Sasuke's ears. Slowly opening his eyes, he saw his parents, whom he thought about day and night. He still looks as young as before. Sasuke also found himself in a house that looked very much like his childhood home. Uchiha Fugaku didn't show much surprise when his son suddenly appeared in front of him. After all, that Kakashi comes down every day and even chatted with him some time ago. It's just that idiot thought he was dreaming even though he came to the Pure Land. Fugaku generally believed that the people above had developed a new technique, and this technique should be able to temporarily come to the Pure Land. So I wasn't too surprised to see Sasuke. Dad, Mom. Sasuke saw his parents again and shouted excitedly. Tears flowed from the corners of his eyes and wet the Pure Land. At this moment, Sasuke completely forgot about everything. He just wants to be a child now, take revenge, become stronger, etc. Never mind. He just wanted to cry and complain about the pain and grievances he had suffered for so many years at his parents' knees. When Mikoto saw Sasuke crying so sadly, he stepped forward and held his head to comfort him. Sasuke, after all these years, it must be very hard, right? Mom, Just as mother and son were showing tenderness, Fugaku still had that stinking face. He remembered that Kakashi and he had talked about how Sasuke had sold his family's possessions in the present world to make ninja tools, and also took an unhealthy book from his son of the fourth generation. And he's very addicted. All kinds of actions made it impossible for Fugaku to live peacefully in the Pure Land. Snort, you still have a nerve to cry. We already know what happened between you and Naruto. When he heard a certain keyword, Sasuke's tears instantly stopped. His pupils dilated, and his head went blank. What? The thing about Naruto asking me to wear women's clothes. Father and mother all know? When he thought about his parents finding out about wearing JK women's clothing, Sasuke really wanted to die again. At the same time, Sasuke was extremely confused. He knew that people would come to the Pure Land after death. How do they know? Isn't this matter only known to Class 7, etc.? Kakashi. Sasuke suddenly remembered that Kakashi died before and came back to life again. That is to say, damn it, Kakashi actually told his parents about this. Tell me the truth. Whose idea was it? You or Naruto? What on earth do you think? You're still so young. How did you end up on this path? Fugaku was angry at first, and then looked distressed and scolded Sasuke. This damn kid. Forget about being addicted to illicit books. It is really unjustifiable that the family property can be sold. It really doesn't hurt at all to sell your ancestors' property, right? And this kid has never considered getting married and having children in the future. You know, the continuation of Uchiha is a big deal now. Me? Sasuke stood there numbly. His face was wet with sweat, and his whole body looked like he had been fished out of the water. What are you? Are you mute? Hearing his father's violent shouting, Sasuke knew that he couldn't hide the matter, so he could only tell his father what happened. And I wear JK women's clothing. That's all for the sake of opening 3 Magatama. It's for strength. Sasuke, what's wrong with him? Sasuke closed his eyes and gritted his teeth, planning to confess to his father. The moment he spoke, Fugaku also began to speak. Father, I also put on women's clothes just to stimulate Sharingan to open 3 Magatama. Sasuke, no matter what you do, you can't sell your family property. Sasuke. Fugaku. Makoto, the moment the father and son finished speaking, their expressions were dull for a full minute, and time seemed to stand still at this moment. When Makoto heard that his youngest son was wearing women's clothes, he covered his mouth and his eyes were full of shock. When she thought of Kakashi telling them that Sasuke and Naruto were tired of being together every day, she became more and more uneasy. People of the older generation have a hard time imagining a grown man wearing women's clothes. He even shamelessly said it was just to open the 3 Magatama Sharingan. Didn't you open it when the clan was exterminated? Fugaku's head was buzzing with anger at this child. In other words, there is no way for Pure Land to die again. If Fugaku is still alive, I doubt that this child will be angry to death on the spot. Uchiha Sasuke, you actually did such a thing to disgrace Uchiha's reputation in this world. Hang him up. Hang up. I'm going to let you know the family laws of the Uchiha clan today. Fugaku was so angry that he found a big iron rod and started calling the Uchiha people. As Fugaku roared loudly, the dead Uchiha tribe members continued to pour into the room. What they just said could be clearly heard by everyone nearby. Every Sharingan started a fire, and everyone was furious at this guy who had insulted Uchiha's reputation. Without saying a word, everyone rushed toward Sasuke. Sasuke's spirit body suddenly became blurry at this time, and when the Uchiha tribesman was about to touch Sasuke's body, he had already disappeared. When Sasuke opened his eyes again, he saw the blue sky again, and the sound of fighting could be heard in his ears. Sasuke stood up slowly, the fear still on his face. He was obviously frightened by what had just happened. He moved his right arm twice and found that the statue he held in his arms had turned into powder. Combined with everything that happened before, as well as what happened when Kakashi died and came back to life, he was quite sure that Naruto threw that statue just to resurrect him. Damn by Mao Zongdan. After knowing everything, Sasuke stood up and cursed. If it weren't for that guy, his parents won't know about him wearing women's clothes. It's all Kakashi's fault. Chapter 94. Naruto uses Iron Gate to harden Shikaka's big bang bang bang. At this time, Naruto was using the door panel to stand in front of Sasuke, resisting all Shikaka's attacks. Although the totem of immortality can resurrect people, there's a prerequisite that the body cannot receive any damage within 10 seconds after contact with the totem of immortality. This is the conclusion reached by Uzumaki Stark's experiments on small animals and his observation of white hairs. Therefore, as soon as Naruto came off the field, he took the door panel and placed it in front of Sasuke to resist any possible damage. Listening to the sound of the wind hitting the door panel and feeling the huge force coming from his shoulders, Naruto once again refreshed the concept of the power of tailed beasts. I've always heard that Shikaku is the weakest among the tailed beasts. Even the big fox said so. Naruto didn't realize it until now. Shikaku is weak compared to tailed beasts. As long as the door panel in his hand is not made of special material, It will turn into scrap metal if it blocks one of Shikaku's blank bullets. Naruto finally understands. You can say Kurama is strong, but you can't say Shikaku is weak. While struggling to withstand the attack, Sasuke's voice rang in Naruto's ears. Damn by Mao Zongdan. Uzumaki Naruto. How can this kid Sasuke imitate me? Vi. Kakashi-sensei, what happened to you? Idiot, how much can you get? Why did you fall asleep on the floor while you were snoring? Where is your 3,000 thunderbolts? Naruto didn't ask why this kid came back to life and started to attack Kakashi, but instead opened his mouth to be angry with Sasuke. Real. As long as this kid has some tricks, Shikaka won't get first blood at all. Chun became unscrupulous because he had the Xianzhong ruler in his hand that could restore chakra and injuries. Please, you kid doesn't really think that you're a berserker, right? Doesn't this mean that the jungle position is used as a solo player? Which way has more? That statue of yours can revive people, right? One comes. Sasuke stood up and gritted his teeth, looking at the furious Shikaku angrily. His cross-dressing incident caused a stir in the Uchiha clan, and everyone in the Uchiha clan was aware of it. In addition to Kakashi, the cat demon in front of him was also responsible. From now on, he only thinks about entering the Pure Land after death and facing his parents, his own people. Just thinking about it makes me explode with shame. Naruto's taunt just now inflamed Sasuke's hatred for the cat demon even more. Sasuke just wants to kill his opponent or be killed by him. Naruto glanced at the boy speechlessly and finally threw a totem of immortality to Sasuke. This saves him from having to be wary of this kid being killed in the subsequent battles. He even threw a rope to Sasuke. Moreover, being infuriated by Shikaku Fengdunji for a long time would make a normal person angry, especially the fox in his belly, which kept yelling for Naruto to beat Shikaku. But let it come out on its own, and it won't be happy no matter what. The big fox said it was very sweet, saying that he had been taught by it since he was a child. If he couldn't beat Shikaku, he would just find a tree and kill him as soon as possible. This will make it easier to get a new Jinchuriki. According to him, the big fox didn't do it himself because of his weight. It is not difficult to imagine that if the Nine-Tails orange pig appeared in front of Shikaku, it would be ridiculed. After Sasuke got the statue, he tied several knots around his waist with a rope. It seems quite cautious, to be on the safe side. Naruto also took out a totem of immortality and tied it around his waist. Jinin, who was fighting around him, saw his face twisted into a ball when he saw the style of the two people below. The two boys carried a 1.6-meter-long strange statue on their backs. One held a 2-meter-long giant sword in his hand, and the other held a 2-meter-high, colorful door panel. If it weren't for the Konoha forehead protectors on these two boys, and the fact that everyone was familiar with these two boys, they might have thought that they were Orochimaru's men. It's so outrageous. Sasuke, come along. Naruto held the door panel, looked at each other with Sasuke, and they both disappeared from the place at the same time. They also choose to engage in a pedicure battle with the rampaging Shikaku. Naruto was fearless because the big fox said that Shikaku went berserk because the red-haired boy's life was threatened. Now Shikaku's behavior is completely instinctive. In other words, the current One-Tail is not in its complete form. To deal with Shikaku like this, Naruto was so confident that he didn't even open the space door. He simply relied on the speed of his body to lift the door panel and teleport behind Shikaku. And Sasuke didn't know the power of the tailed beast at all. He thought that the other party was a cat demon in its transformed form. The reason he was in the current situation was because he had created the prototype, coupled with the extra resurrection item behind him. Sasuke felt that he could kill the opponent alone with 2 lives. He activated the 3,000 Thunder Phantom Bodies with all his strength, and hundreds of Sasuke figures appeared around Shikaku. Although the 3,000 Thunder Phantom Body consumes a lot of energy, as long as he uses the Xianzhong ruler to stick to the opponent, he can quickly restore chakra. Roar! The furious Shikaku became even more furious when he saw the bugs flashing in front of him. It roared at the sky, slapped its belly with both hands, and countless wind escape blades quickly spread out with Shikaku as the center. Everything within this attack range was neatly cut open. There were only 2 cheaters at the scene, and if anyone else was nearby, they would most likely be cut off at the waist. Maybe Shikaku's wind release is very strong. But the weapons in Naruto and Sasuke's hands were both offensive and defensive. They held the door panel and Schwanzhong ruler in front of them at the same time and rushed forward to face Shikaku's wind release. Naruto was distracted while running and opened several light gates, but only part of the ninjutsu was transferred back while running and distracted. Just as these 2 people appeared at Shikaku's feet one after the other, Naruto glanced at Shikaku's back door, raised the large iron door in his hand, and pushed it up. Facing the attack from behind, Shikaku's huge figure froze, and the release of ninjutsu was interrupted. Naruto saw Shikaku stiffen by being stabbed by him and shouted to Sasuke, "Idiot, give it! Which way has more roads?" The 2 of them used their strongest moves at the same time, without saying much. Naruto held his left hand empty, and a blue light grouped the size of a fist gradually condensed in his hand. However, he didn't dare to hit Shikaku with the tailed Beast Tamaki Kame style Kigong wave. There were so many people here, and he was really afraid of accidentally blowing up the entire Konoha village. Turtle style Kigong wave. The Yenfen devours the wave ruler. The 2 most powerful figures in the ninja world attacked Shikaku one after another and used ultimate moves that were completely out of this world. The blue beam penetrated Shikaku's tail, and the red flames slashed across Shikaku's belly like a crescent moon. At this time, Shikaku realized that he had just come out of the sealed space, and before he could figure out the situation, he felt intense pain. Ha 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 ha. The familiar laughter was still ringing in Shikaku's ears. "It's you, Stinky Fox. You are so presumptuous." Before the 2-tailed beasts could curse, Shikaku was knocked back from consciousness. Mainly because Naruto was afraid of being unsafe, so he opened a light door, ran over Shikaku's head, and kept hitting Gaara with the door panel. As soon as Sasuke regained consciousness, he saw Naruto holding the door panel and beating Gaara on the ground. Chapter 95, Death of Third Generation. As soon as Shikaku regained consciousness, he was beaten back by 2 idiots. The comatose Gaara also woke up under Naruto's door panel wake-up service, but looking at his bruised nose and face, he thought his condition was not much better. On the periphery of the battlefield, the corners of Kakashi's eyes, which were full of blue, twitched. How did these 2 children grow up? That's one-tailed Jinchuriki of Sunagakure village. The war machines in the ninja world were about to go berserk, but they were beaten back by these 2 guys. Originally, he and Kai were planning to rush forward. When they finally saw these 2 released ninjutsu, they were really afraid of being accidentally injured by these 2 before they even stepped forward. "Kakashi, your student. He is indeed the most youthful and passionate person in Konoha." Although Kai shouted about youth, his tone was no longer as passionate as before, which was enough to tell that he was speechless. Then he thought of the 2 little guys' daily training, and Kai's eyes ignited fighting spirit again. "It seems that my youth is not passionate enough. At the end of today, I will pull 5 trees and run 100 times around the village. My destined opponent, let's go through hell training together." Kakashi. Not only did the 2 sigh, but the ninjas who had participated in the war were shocked and frightened when they saw the 2 one-tails who had just gone berserk. Those ninjas who have never experienced it may have no idea about tailed beasts going berserk, but most of them have seen one-tailed strength on the battlefield. That destructive power, just raising your hand, can kill countless people on the battlefield. Now, many ninjas in the cemetery died at the hands of one tail. Now I see these 2 people born. Everyone gasped at the same time. They can no longer imagine how terrifying these 2 guys would be if they continue to grow. Barriers the generation reincarnated from Orochimaru's filthy soil. The 2nd generation beat up the 3rd generation without fail. After dodging and retreating, 3rd generation saw from the corner of their eyes that Naruto and Sasuke had stopped the tailed beast from going rampage and immediately smiled with relief. Naruto, this kid, he's usually a bit annoying, but at critical moments, he's as reliable as Minato. The old man glanced at Konoha village for the last time, his eyes showing reluctance, and his life flashed through his mind. Looking at his once most promising disciple, third generation's face was filled with determination. Orochimaru, I will never allow you to continue to make mistakes. Shadow, clone jutsu. Third generation stood the stick in front of him, used shadow clone, and formed seals with his hands again. Hiruzen, do you want to? The monkey demon suddenly spoke, with shock in his tone. It felt that the situation on the scene was far from being sealed by the zombies, and there was no need to trade one life with Orochimaru. The third generation ignored the monkey demon and quickly completed the seal of this technique. Shinigami's shadow gradually condensed behind him, and the soul of third Hokage clearly existed in his arms. And Orochimaru couldn't see the shadow behind him at all. The third generation decisively raised the weapon without any scruples, and none of Orochimaru's attacks could stop him. In the end, the third generation used the monkey demon to grab Orochimaru's hands. The shadow of Shinigami behind him slowly raised the sharp blade in his hand and penetrated the third generation's chest, preparing to harvest the souls of the two together. The two clones on the side grabbed Tobirama and Hashirama, one on the left and the other on the right. Shinigami's arms slowly pulled out the souls of the two dead people. Although Orochimaru didn't know what the old man was going to do, he already smelled the breath of death. He knew that if he continued like this, he would really die at the hands of the third generation. Orochimaru raised his finger slightly and used chakra to control the Kusanagi sword on the ground. He had already aimed at the heart of the third generation. The two shouted at the same time, "It's over. Go to hell." The Kusanagi sword passed through the heart of the third generation, and Shinigami only pulled out Orochimaru's arm and dispersed. The consciousness of the third generation is gradually blurring. The injuries on his body were no longer able to pull out all of Orochimaru's soul. Swish the Shinigami in the air didn't care so much. He took away part of Orochimaru's soul and the soul of the third generation with just a drop of his sword. Orochimaru's hands instantly lost all feeling, and his body felt indescribable pain. But the old man had held his hands tightly, but was unable to let go. He lost all strength and fell into his arms. At this point, Konoha's third Hokage died in battle. Orochimaru pushed the body away with his body, summoned his surrounding men to remove the barriers, and quickly evacuated the scene. At this moment, all the ninjas saw the barriers withdrawing and immediately stepped forward to check the situation of third Hokage. Sasuke and Naruto were the only ones standing on the battlefield. Naruto stood there, looking at the body of third generation Lao Den from a distance for 10 minutes. After sighing softly, Naruto opened the door, said hello to Sasuke, and left first. Sasuke was holding a paper ball thrown by a sound ninja in his hand. He raised his hand to throw it away, but at the moment of throwing it out, he put it back in his pocket. On this day, Konoha's third Hokage died in battle, and the sky responded to the occasion with a light rain, which continued until the next day. At the third Hokage's funeral, everyone in Konoha village came to pay their respects to the elderly man. Even a white-haired old man who had escaped from the village to avoid the limelight came to the scene. He held the old man's crystal ball in his arms, and raindrops fell on his face. It was unclear whether it was rain or tears. After staying in place for a long time, Jiraiya looked up at the sky, closed his eyes, and murmured to himself, "Sorry, old man. I'm late." There were not many cries and howls at the scene. Almost all the new generation ninjas were crying. The older generation of ninjas have become accustomed to this kind of life and death scene. Konohamaru knelt in front of the tombstone and burst into tears, constantly recalling his grandfather's face in his mind. "Woo, grandfather." After crying a few times, Konohamaru hurriedly took out many medicines from his jacket pockets and trouser pockets. While crying, he placed the medicine bottles neatly in front of the tombstone. "Ew. Grandpa, I dug this out of the trash can. Ew. When you go to the Pure Land, don't forget to take medicine." Uzumaki Naruto, a group of people around him, were immediately silenced by Konohamaru's filial behavior. But no one stopped it. Although his behavior was somewhat inappropriate, at least Konohamaru's intentions were good. Everyone's condolences ended quickly, and not long after, many people had left the scene, except for the two Shiranes, Konohamaru and Naruto. Naruto didn't go back because he hadn't paid his condolences to the third generation yet. Naruto didn't know why the three people nearby didn't go back. To be honest, this was Naruto's first time to attend a funeral in Konoha, and he only sent a bouquet of flowers to express his condolences. He didn't quite understand what it meant. Jiraiya stood next to Naruto. When he saw the child moving slowly, he raised his hand and patted his shoulder and whispered, "Go ahead, come forward and say your final goodbyes to the old man." Naruto raised his head, looked at the serious expression of the white-haired old man, nodded slightly, and finally took the first step. However, when he was about to reach the third-generation tombstone, Naruto threw the bouquet aside. Before Kakashi and Jiraiya could recover, they saw Naruto taking out a blue sword and walking step by step to the tombstone. Kakashi was worried that Naruto was going to mess up, so he called out his name, but Jiraiya shook his head to stop him. Naruto looked at the smiling portrait of third-generation Lao Din. The corners of his mouth suddenly raised, and he pointed the diamond sword in his hand at the portrait and shouted, "Third-generation Lao Din, my sword is not bad at all." Chapter 96. Drink Tsingtao beer and beat up friends and relatives. Wow. Grandfather. Brother Naruto, can you order some more glutinous rice balls? Want something sweet? Konohamaru cried loudly while rummaging through things with chopsticks. Every time he took a bite of food, he would howl twice. It can be seen that the death of third generation really caused a big blow to this child. Wait a minute. The meatballs I just made are not yet cooked. Naruto took a sip of the crystal powder, his face full of satisfaction and satisfaction. Konohamaru, who was sitting opposite him, raised his buttocks and cried while picking up things. Jiraiya and Kakashi grabbed the wine glasses and sipped the wine. The stimulation of alcohol made them forget their sadness for a while. The old, new foursomes sit around a square table, eating hot pot and drinking wine. At first glance, there is nothing wrong with the scene of four people eating hot pot, but it was still raining lightly outside them, as well as, diagonally across from Jiraiya, you could directly see the portrait of the third Hokage. Above the four people's seats, there is a huge canopy tent, including tables, chairs, benches, hot pot dishes, and chopsticks, all made by Naruto Uzumaki. The ingredients in the pot, as well as the drinks Jiraiya and Kakashi drank, were all tributes from the third-generation old man. All the ingredients are today's, very fresh and excellent. As for why the four of them gathered around the third-generation graveyard to eat hot pot, let's start with a certain white-haired old man. Jiraiya said at the time that he had been away from Konoha for many years and had not had a drink with the old man for a long time. When I think about it now, we have been separated forever. When he said this, the sadness in Jiraiya's eyes almost overflowed. As a result, I turned around and saw Naruto holding the tombstone with one hand, his feet intertwined, and biting an apple in his mouth. The master and apprentice immediately looked at each other for 2 seconds, and they could tell what the other was thinking without any more words. The next second, the two of them were sitting in front of the third-generation grave and eating tribute. White-haired Kakashi tried to stop them several times. But before the words were spoken, Jiraiya and Naruto spoke in perfect harmony. Tributes are just the living's condolences and condolences to the deceased. Instead of leaving it to rot in the cemetery, it would be better for young people like us to eat it. Konohamaru felt that what Naruto and his master said were very reasonable, and with tears in his eyes, he joined the team that stole his grandfather's tribute. The three of them squatted on the graveside with sad faces in the drizzle, eating the tributes devoutly. Within a few minutes, Jiraiya couldn't bear the rain anymore. He disliked his surroundings very much. There are also some tributes that have not yet been cooked. I have eaten everything else, and it would be a pity not to eat these things. When Naruto heard this, he pulled out the canopy tent directly from the system. He immediately set up camp in the cemetery and took out pots, pans, tables, chairs, and benches. At first, Naruto thought about taking some ingredients from the system and cooking them. After all, no matter how much the third generation's tribute was, it would not be enough for the three of them. But considering the reputation of the third generation, Naruto felt that it was somewhat impolite for him to eat something other than tribute on someone's grave. In the end, Naruto did not take out the ingredients from the system. Konohamaru, on the other hand, was so clever that he secretly went to someone else's grave and took a lot of things and stuffed them into his arms. In this regard, Naruto can only say that his little brother is very sensible. A few minutes after the ingredients were taken out of the pot, Kakashi struggled internally for a long time before deciding to sit down and eat together. No need to think too much. Whether he appeared here today or not, he is already considered a gang member. Rather than doing nothing and taking the blame, it's better to sit down and have something to eat. When the time comes, I will be able to feel more at ease when I am punished. So, the four old, new and junior students of the scene had hot pot in front of the third generation grave. The moment he enjoyed the tribute, he had already taken off the mask on his face, and it was the first time for Naruto to see the full sight of Shirogane Nakanobu. To say handsome, Naruto felt that he was almost the same as him. However, with his white-haired face, he looks like a good candidate for a job as a cowherd. The only drawback is that he still looks like he has kidney deficiency. Kakashi ate the last meatball and took another sip of wine, with a hint of drunkenness on his face. Which way has more? Something is not enough. After finishing speaking, Jiraiya and Konohamaru both looked at Naruto. Under the threatening gazes of the three men, Naruto finally broke his bottom line. Third generation old man, I give you a lot of face. Eat something else on your grave. That was all coerced by your grandson and disciples. It has nothing to do with me. Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto sighed lightly and kept taking out the system ingredients. There were everything that could fly in the sky, run on the ground, and swim in the water, which made the three people at the table even more hungry. Who cares if we have dinner at a graveyard? Jiraiya poured out the last drop of wine in the glass and frowned slightly. He suddenly remembered that after drinking so many glasses, he seemed to have not yet had a drink with the old man. Naruto, do you have any wine? Upon hearing Jiraiya's words, Naruto rolled his eyes on the spot and threw out a box of Tsingtao beer. He raised his head and drank a can, and Jiraiya made a cheerful sound. Compared with the sake just now, I still need to drink it to cool down. He hooked Naruto's shoulders and said with a smile, "Which road has the most traffic? Do you want something to drink?" Lao dang. I'm not yet a minor. You kids still care about this? Uzumaki Naruto. Thinking about it, what Jiraiya said did make some sense. Considering his physical condition, drinking a little wine wouldn't be a big problem. So, Naruto opened a can of wine for himself, and also drank it for Konohamaru. To be honest, I did something to lead the grandson of the third generation old man at his grave. In fact, he felt quite guilty. Just like this, for drunkards, old, new, and new, were making loud noises at the grave. Advisor, sir, something bad is going to happen. The Umbu ninja ran and rolled in front of Mito Manabu and Koharu. Due to the death of the third Hokage in the battle, the Umbu ninja authority was temporarily handed over to the two advisors. But they really don't want to clean up this mess. Before, Sarutobi Hiruzen was blocking Konoha's yellow hair, so they didn't have to worry at all. In addition, Danzo was seriously injured and was hospitalized in a coma, and the third generation also died in battle. Now the whole mess of Konoha village can only fall on them. Umbu Ninja told how the four old, new, and junior people had a dinner at the grave and drank a lot of wine. Riding on a horse. The bones of third Hokage are not yet cold. If you do something like this, aren't you afraid that Mr. Hokage will be so angry that he comes to life and shows off a few bottles of antihypertensive pills? At that time, more than a dozen Umbu ninjas couldn't stand it any longer, took out their weapons, and rushed forward. The result. However, the opponent's combat power was really terrifying. More than a dozen Umbu ninjas attacked at the same time, but they were pinned to the ground by two white-haired ones and one yellow-haired one. Especially since those guys were all drunk, their attack was completely insignificant. The Umbu ninja can report back to the Hokage building. That is to say, he knew the extent of Konoha Huangmao's birth, so he just hid behind and watched the battle to avoid this disaster. As for everyone else, it has been hung on the tree by yellow hair. Midaman Yin and transferring Koharu saw the Umbu ninja shouting, and his heart skipped a beat. After hearing the news, everyone's eyes darkened. Their blood pressure also soared at this moment. Fortunately, Sarutobi Hiruzen still had some remaining medicine in his drawer. They reluctantly found the medicine and took it. After a few minutes of relief, they felt much better. Hiruzen, it's really not easy for you. At this moment, they finally understood how difficult Sarutobi Hiruzen had been through these years. But what to do next? Jiraiya, one of the Sannin, the genius ninja Hatake Kakashi, the son of the fourth generation, Konoha HMO, and the last grandson of the third generation. Picking out just one can give them a headache for a while, let alone four. I can't control it all. Rough. Konoha will really be doomed if it continues like this. No, must choose Hokage now. Go to bed, Koharu finished speaking and glanced at the Mitos. The two exchanged glances, both saying that whoever wanted to take the blame for the fifth generation project, Hokage, would never do it anyway. After all, they want to live a few more years. And fifth Hokage must have qualifications and be able to suppress these four people. The candidate who meets these two requirements is very clear. The two looked at each other and spoke at the same time. Correct. Tsunade, one of the Sannin. Chapter 97, Konoha's Idea King's amazing idea. I don't know since when. The location of Hokage has slowly changed. Maybe it was the moment when a certain yellow hair was picked up by a trafficker, or maybe it was the moment when third generation took anti-hypertensive drugs for the first time. The original Hokage had to be recognized by everyone before he could become Hokage. This is one of the most important conditions. And now, an important condition for becoming a Hokage is to be able to suppress several scourges in the village. It would be no exaggeration to say that this location has become a hot potato. The moment the third generation died in battle, everyone was sad and missed the fourth generation couple even more. Inside the Hokage building, all Jonin who could speak, as well as several chiefs of the great ninja clans gathered here. Of course, except for a certain white-haired Zondon. Two Hokage advisors stood on the stage and announced to everyone the fifth Hokage, Tsunade. Very good. With Tsunade-sama, there is hope for Konoha. Yes, Tsunade-sama's strength is more than enough to deal with Huang Mao. Everyone's faces showed joy when they heard Consultant Hokage's announcement. No way. During the time when Lord Jiraiya came back, not only did he fail to control Uzumaki Naruto, but he also caused even greater trouble. Everyone has been completely disappointed with him. Moreover, the fifth Hokage is Tsunade-sama, so she can take good care of the two masters and disciples. However, after finishing speaking, the two looked at everyone present seriously. Everyone, the two of us will resign as Hokage consultants. Do the clan leaders have anything to say? Chief Hayashi, what do you want to say to the next Hokage advisor? Hyuga Hayashi? Hiding in the corner, Hyuga Hayashi felt that he had kept a very low profile, but his name was still called. After the third generation died in the battle, his first reaction was to worry. He was afraid that the village would throw the responsibility of Hokage onto his shoulders. After all, to a certain extent, he is Uzumaki Naruto's father-in-law. It is indeed reasonable to use him to deal with Uzumaki Naruto. But the problem is, he can't control that yellow hair at all. Yesterday, he was kind enough to ask that kid to leave the battlefield first, but he was kicked away by that kid before he could finish his words. Although Hayashi knew that Huang Mao's behavior was because he was worried about himself, he really didn't like this way of caring. Moreover, your son-in-law dares to kick my father-in-laws, but what else can't you do? And Hayashi's guess is indeed correct. If Tsunade really doesn't want to be the fifth generation project, then Hyuga Hayashi is the next choice. Hyuga Hayashi was silent for a while before speaking Cade. The two Hokage advisors are wise, but the position of Hokage advisor, it's hard for me to shoulder this important responsibility, and the village cannot live without these two adults. As soon as he finished speaking, Nara Shikaku also jumped out to speak. Yes, in terms of qualifications and abilities, we are both inferior to them. This is a critical moment. So why bother to step down from office? Shikaku's words instantly opened up everyone's conversation, and they all started praising the two consultants. Is it really what everyone says? No, not really. In fact, everyone present knew that the two consultants just didn't want to clean up the mess of the guys over at the cemetery. When third generation was in office, they were so angry that they were buying antihypertensive drugs by the box. Everyone had a clear idea of what was going on. How could he covet temporary power and plunge his family into endless trouble? Mito Monitis and transferring sleeping Koharu smiled bitterly. They knew it wouldn't work. Once upon a time, they also thought about getting involved in the Hokage position. But as time passes little by little, after seeing the power of Huang Mao, the two of them no longer dared to have any ideas. Anyway, that Nine-Tails Jinchuriki is a big problem. Let's say that the Umbu ninjas should use all their strength to deal with the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, right? There's indeed a chance of winning with the help of a village. But what if one family goes berserk and the Nine-Tails rebellion happens again? I can't fight, but I can't fight. I can't control, but I can't control. Rough. How to do this horse riding? Not only they have a headache, but others also have a headache. With the example of Konohamaru, everyone now has strict control over the children at home. Qian Dingzhu and Wanzhu were worried that they would play with Huang Mao. Konoha is already riddled with holes, and it is impossible to accept that such a person comes from its own family. Everyone stood up to praise the two Hokage consultants, but did not give them a chance to step down. Finally, the meeting ended with the sorrow of the two Hokage consultants and the laughter of everyone. In front of Sarutobi Hiruzen's tomb, the old and new drinking party was not over yet. The empty cans scattered on the ground were enough to show that these four people drank a lot. While pushing cups and changing cups, the four people each told the life of the third-generation old man from his own perspective. As he spoke, Naruto suddenly slapped the table and stood up, shouting excitedly. To be honest, every time Mr. Third Generation wipes my butt, I have to give him a grand funeral. Funerals in this world are ordinary. Even a character like Hokage only offered his condolences and then ended the story hastily. If they hadn't spontaneously eaten and drank in front of the tomb today, Naruto felt that he would not be able to enjoy the third generation seat. He, Uzumaki Naruto, naturally couldn't stand it. Naruto's words instantly aroused the interest of the three people. This was the first time they saw Naruto showing such an expression. Everyone, I have a great idea. Think about what Lao Deng usually likes to do the most. The three of them were stunned for a moment, and then spoke at the same time the next second. Peeping at a female bathhouse. X3 Jiraiya's expression was subtle. Naruto had a good idea, but the old man was gone. How could he still peep? If this kid has this idea, he might as well respect himself. Naruto, what you said makes sense, but I always feel like taking the tombstone to the bathhouse. It's a bit unlucky. Uzumaki Naruto. Kakashi? Konohamaru? Why think about the tombstone of Hiruzen Sarutobi standing in the bathhouse? The painting style does become a bit weird. Jiraiya scratched his chin and made an astonishing statement, which was immediately stunned by the people around him. Naruto, you probably want to get some for third generation Sama. Women's clothing? Kakashi thought he understood Naruto, but he recalled the time when Sasuke dressed as a woman, and then he thought of this. But my grandma is buried next to my grandpa. Brother, you are doing this. I think grandpa will definitely be miserable when he goes to the Pure Land. Konohamaru frowned, as if he was really thinking seriously. After a few seconds, his expression suddenly relaxed. I see. Brother, you want to bury a few more women beside Grandpa's grave, right? Listening to what these three guys said, Naruto almost turned around and left. What is this? There is no reliable one. You, a third-generation old man's disciple and grandson, really don't care about this old man? It seems that I have to take action myself. Ahem. What you said is outrageous. I mean, go to the custom shop and invite some people. Find some singers and dancers, and let them dance here for 3 days and 3 nights. Jiraiya's eyes lit up after hearing this. Kakashi's face turned slightly red, and his expression suddenly became lewd. This is good. What a great idea. You are worthy of being my apprentice. Brother is awesome. After the four exchanged opinions, Naruto drafted a copy of Konoha Village's first Hokage grave song and dance competition, which is expected to be held tomorrow. After chatting about Konoha's first Hokage grave song and dance competition, the four of them packed up the things on the ground and quickly started setting up. Try to give the third-generation old man a grand funeral. As the overall person in charge of the project, Jiraiya, the natural arrangement is clear. Kakashi went to inform the Jonin that Naruto was in charge of the banquet arrangements, and he went to the custom shop to invite people. Konohamaru is still a child. Just be responsible for eating at this moment. Two people wearing red clouds and black robes and hats were walking outside Konoha Village. Mr. Itachi, you think I can still swim to the other side in this life? See Nei Uchiha Itachi. Chapter 98. Why don't you avoid dancing even though you know it's happening? Damn Uzumaki brat. In the hospital, Danzo sat on the bed, and his first words after waking up were to greet Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. Hihihihi. Lord Danzo, this experiment was a success. The first-generation cells in your body are already more integrated than before. I don't know. When can I get what I want? Kabuto Yakushi took off his gloves and stood next to Orochimaru in nurse uniform. No one could have imagined that Orochimaru did not leave Konoha Village after killing the third generation. Instead, he ran to Konoha Hospital and completed Danzo's treatment with the help of Genbi. Calling it a treatment was nothing more than an experiment by Orochimaru. Orochimaru, know your place. We are just a partnership. Danzo felt that Orochimaru was a bit arrogant and even spoke to him in such a tone, so he warned him. However, considering that this guy's contribution was really great this time, he still planned to take out a pair of Sharingan to deal with Orochimaru. After a while, Danzo spoke again. Sharingan, I only have the last pair left. When Yamanaka Feng heard what his boss said, he took out a small box and walked to Orochimaru. After opening, a pair of Magatama Sharingan floated in the test tube. It's a pleasure to work with you, Danzo-sama. Orochimaru looked at the box greedily, ordered Yakushi Kabuto to accept it, and then said his final farewell to Danzo. Correct. I heard that the fifth Hokage of Konoha has been selected. It's Tsunade. When Danzo heard the news, his face instantly darkened, and he looked like he might explode at any time. Then goodbye. Kabuto Yakushi held Orochimaru, cast a reverse psychic spell, and disappeared with a bang. Hateful. The Hokage's place is mine. Danzo clenched his fists tightly, gritted his teeth, and cursed angrily. However, Orochimaru's cell fusion experiment solved his previous embarrassing situation. After fusing Hashirama's cells, he now has the ability to use with style, according to Orochimaru's previous statement. His with style is twice as strong as Yamato, which is good news. If you don't look at the three pillar faces on his chest, he is no different from a normal person now. As for the price, the Sharingan he once transplanted into his arm disappeared due to the accident. Fortunately, at the last moment, he decisively took off Shursue's eye. Otherwise, he would not be able to save the eye due to his survival instinct. Back to the roots. Danzo snorted coldly and got out of bed. The top priority is to go back and transplant Shursue's eyes first. Don't care what the Uzumaki brat is. You have to be obedient once you get rid of the distinguished heavenly gods. Snort. Wait. The position of fifth Hokage must belong to Shimura Danzo. Konoha Village Uchiha Itachi and Kisame strutted to the entrance of the village. As members of the Akatsuki organization, they have no intention of hiding their identities. Of course, Uchiha Itachi, the second fifth son, also wanted to take this opportunity to make Konoha Village wary of the Akatsuki organization. Naturally, he wanted to enter the village to show off his strength. We must also find some powerful ninjas who can do it in seconds, so that the top management of Konoha can be alert. I also asked Danzo to think about it and not have any thoughts about his brother. To put it simply, it means causing trouble in Konoha Village. Enter the village. Itachi uttered 2 words and was about to walk towards Konoha. Kisame beside him immediately followed. The two of them sneaked into Konoha Village one after the other. Just a few minutes after entering the village, a voice suddenly called out from behind them. Those two guys in front. Stop! Itachi and Kisame instantly became alert and turned to look at the person. Kisame's hands were already on the sword behind him, ready to take action at any time. I said, "Are you two walking the wrong place? The Hokage funeral will start soon. Follow me quickly. Jiraiya-sama will deduct my money if I'm late." Uchiha Itachi, Kisame, WDF? Both of them had strange expressions under their hats. Why did they invite them to the Hokage funeral? Haven't you seen them wearing strange clothes that are different from those in Konoha? The person in charge, Kojiro, naturally didn't find it strange. He is considered one of the managers of the largest custom shop in the ninja world. Invited to Konoha to hold a funeral for the third Hokage. Although he didn't know why singers and dancers were invited to dance on the grave at this funeral, he really couldn't resist Jiraiya's money offensive. And in order to satisfy Konoha, he also entrusted other custom giants to get a lot of beautiful men and women done. As for fancy clothes, that yellow-haired kid from Konoha has specially prepared many clothes for everyone. What black stockings, white stockings? There's nothing strange about the red clouds and black robes of the two people in front of them. Kisame laughed in a low voice and was about to draw his sword and chop the opponent. Itachi shook his head to stop him. I haven't figured out the situation yet, so I'll take a look first and then go to the third generation funeral. I think it would be a good opportunity to show off my strength. Maybe I can even see my brother. You two follow me. By the way, when the funeral begins, you must take off your bamboo hats. I can't even see my face clearly. Itachi lowered his head and raised the corners of his mouth slightly. Will do. Kisame seemed to understand Itachi's thoughts and felt happy. When the time comes, picking up the bamboo hat will probably frighten the people of Konoha village, right? Two rebel ninjas show up at the funeral. It's very interesting to think about. Kojiro muttered and walked towards the third generation cemetery. He followed Kojiro without any hesitation. In front of the third generation grave, there are already more than 20 tables set up in a large open space. Dozens of Huangmao shuttled among the crowd, carrying plates and busy serving food. And the eyes of many Konoha ninjas are all focused on the stage at the grave of the third generation. He, good apprentice. These clothes you made are so good. Jiraiya squatted on the ground and smiled obscenely as he looked at the singer in short skirt and black stockings on the stage. The more than 30 singers and dancers on stage were all dressed in very immodest ways. She seems to be from a poorer family than the women in the custom shop. If it weren't for a bad day, he would have wanted to blend in and feel it. It's really good. Kakashi squatted beside and expressed his opinion. Konohamaru held his chin with both hands, unable to understand what was so attractive about the woman on the stage. These are not as interesting as the door panels in your own home. That is required. These things have been tested by the market. Naruto squatted on the ground and said proudly, "You must know that those clothes are the exclusive shirts of the little ladies who were sidelined in the previous life. This aesthetic completely captures the hearts of men in the ninja world." The four old, new, and junior students squatted on the ground and made strange laughter from time to time. Sasuke, wearing a black robe and a hat, didn't even dare to look at the stage. As soon as he saw JK, the unbearable memories appeared in his mind. When will it end? I still want to go back to practice. Chapter 99, Uchiha Itachi. Strange. Where's my brother? TSK. Although the funeral that Naruto organized is a bit ridiculous, but the old man must like this. Asma held a cigarette in her mouth and kept her eyes on the stage. Boom! Yai Kurenai punched Asuma in the head, then hugged his shoulders and said angrily, I think you like it. Huh. This idea probably came from Jiraiya. What does it have to do with that child Naruto? If you like it, keep watching. Yai Kurenai snorted and turned around to leave. Cold sweat broke out on Asuma's forehead when he saw this. Oh, wait. Listen to my explanation. It's not what you think. The effect of the first Hokage graveside song and dance competition was far better than Naruto expected, and the men really liked it very much. But this has also caused a lot of trouble for many married people and couples. It is worth mentioning that none of the older generation of ninjas came. They were all Kakashi's classmates or acquaintances. He didn't dare to invite several clan leaders, afraid of being kicked out. After all, this kind of thing happened on the grave of the third generation. What if after they die, the next generation in the family will follow suit? Everyone's head hurts just thinking about it. After they heard that Jiraiya was planning to hold a graveyard dance for the third generation, they strictly prohibited their descendants from participating. However, many people still went. Just kidding, you can see beautiful women and have something to eat, so why not go? The first Hokage graveside song and dance festival begins now. Uzumaki Naruto stood on the stage. After announcing loudly, the Ying Yin Yin on the stage immediately stood up. Wearing headphones, Kyofeng stood on the DJ stage, shaking his body and shaking his head from gear to gear, playing the disc. Radisson and Bricks. I'm a DJ of this venue. Uzumaki Kyofeng. Would you like to sway to the music with me? Along with Uzumaki Kyofeng's shout, music also sounded at this moment. But I still can't accept this gap. Our love is like a falling star as the song rang out. The untrained singers and dancers danced like demons. The Konoha ninja sitting at the banquet couldn't help but sway to the rhythm. Behind the noisy stage, there are many performers in strange costumes waiting. Among them are two Akatsuki organization members in red clouds and black robes. I said, "What are you wearing?" "Black robe, hat, nail polish." "Put this on quickly." Uchiha Itachi, Kisame. Kojiro threw two bunny girl outfits to the two of them. Uchiha Itachi and Kisame were silent for a long time while holding the cloth in their hands. "Itachi, Mr. Itachi, I feel something is wrong." Kisame looked at the women's clothes in his hands and listened to the music from the outside world, feeling something was very wrong. Hearing this, Uchiha Itachi was silent again. To be honest, his mood was a little subtle. After all, even if he is dead as Konoha's undercover boss, Konoha's style of painting has become extremely strange. He would never wear this thing anyway. What if Sasuke sees me? Walk. Itachi ignored that Kojiro. He was afraid that he couldn't help but stab him to death with kunai. The two lowered their hats, pushed through the crowd, and walked towards the stage. At this time, a certain yellow-haired man was squatting on the ground laughing and joking with two white-haired men. Little did he know that Hinata was already standing behind him. Which way is more popular? Which one do you like among them all? Facing the master's question, Naruto thought for a moment and then said, "If I were 30 years old, I would go on stage and dance with them. If I were 20 years old, I would choose to step off the stage and dance with them. What if you were 13? Before Naruto finished speaking, Hinata's voice suddenly rang in his ears, and several men on the scene shrank their necks. Jiraiya and Kakashi turned to look at Hinata, their eyes full of gloating. Good. Let's fight." No one has ever seen the opportunity for Huang Mao shouting to be defeated. Naruto still didn't look back and didn't look panicked at all. It's really a bit. It means that Mount Tai collapses in front of you, but remains unchanged. However, at this time, Naruto was calling the big fox crazily in his heart. Rough. Big fox, come out quickly. Blow up all of Konoha. This world shouldn't exist. Kurama, who had just seen the intense plot, frowned and was very unhappy that his interest was suddenly interrupted. No time. If you want to blow it up, do it yourself. Hearing that the big fox rejected him, Naruto felt that the whole world became gray. His wife was standing behind him, and the pores all over his body seemed to have exploded. You can imagine that if you don't give a reasonable explanation, you will die miserably. Naruto took a few deep breaths, his brain running wildly. After 0.03 seconds, he made a decision. He put on a smile, turned around, and took Hinata's little hand and spoke lovingly. If I were 13, of course I would only choose to be with Hinata-chan. I will marry Hinata-chan in the future. Getting married? When Hinata heard Naruto say the last words, her face turned red and her brain stopped thinking for an instant. So shameful. How could Naruto-kun say such things in front of so many people? Besides, Lord Jiraiya is considered Naruto-kun's master. Does that count as meeting her parents? Hinata was in a daze and could only let Naruto take her away. While Naruto took his wife away, he kept blaming her. Hinata-chan, Let me tell you, neither of the two white hairs over there are good. What I didn't want to see just now was because they dragged me here. What else can you say about letting me see the world of adults? Jiraiya and Kakashi looked at Naruto's figure with mixed feelings in their hearts. Rough. Why is there nothing wrong with this kid? Besides, it's obviously your kid's idea. The one in front of me was Mr. Kakashi and Mr. Jiraiya. Now, if something goes wrong, you start calling Baimao? How can you be so imbecile at such a young age? The two white-haired men looked at each other and were silent for a while, before Jiraiya suddenly spoke up. This kid, has it always been like this? Kakashi sighed deeply. Yes, I shouldn't have gone to the bookstore that afternoon 6 years ago. Kakashi started to complain to Jiraiya as he spoke. As one of the people closest to Xiao Huangmao, Jiraiya instantly felt the same. Really, he was beginning to regret it now. He shouldn't have returned to the village in the first place. Sasuke ignored the two of them. After seeing Naruto leave, he was also ready to leave here and go back to continue training. As soon as he took a step forward, Sasuke caught a glimpse of two members of the Akatsuki organization in the midst of a flurry of demons. He also happened to catch a glimpse of the side face of one of them. Uchiha Itachi was looking towards the audience at this time, wanting to see if he could find his younger brother. But after searching for a few minutes, I didn't see my little brother with a spiky head and blue and white clothes. Strangeness. Did Sasuke not come? Not finding his brother, Itachi felt very irritable, coupled with the loud music in his ears and the trembling Kisame beside him. It was even more annoying. Kisame, can you stop shaking? Chapter 106 Years in Hedon. 6 years in Hushi. Don't bully young people into poverty. Uchiha Itachi still couldn't find his brother after searching for a while, so he planned to leave this strange place first. If he continued to stay like this, he was really afraid that he would not be able to help Kisame read it for a month. The two turned around and walked off the stage. Behind the crowd, the black-robed Sasuke lowered his face with his hood, his body trembling with excitement. It's Uchiha Itachi. He has been waiting for this day for countless days and nights. Finally waited for this opportunity. Sasuke screamed in his heart and couldn't help but recall his previous experience of going to the Pure Land. Hey, Uchiha Itachi, death is just the beginning for you. After you go to the Pure Land, prepare to accept the endless anger of your tribe. He felt frightened when he thought about being surrounded by his tribe and almost being hung up and beaten by his father. Just by wearing women's clothing, I made the tribe so angry. As for Uchiha Itachi, who massacred his tribe, he didn't dare to think about what kind of treatment he would receive after he went down. Sasuke slowly followed behind, maintaining a distance of 100 meters. He held his hood to cover his face with one hand and held down the seal scroll in his arms with the other. He carries 120 seal scrolls with him every day and is waiting for this day. Coincidentally, Sasuke learned a lot when he fought Naruto a few days ago. For example, how to deal with pupil users. When Sasuke opened the 3 Magatama and prepared to use Genjutsu control on Naruto, Naruto took out the lime powder from his pocket and sprinkled it on the spot. Unprepared, Sasuke covered his eyes and shouted in pain. From then on, Sasuke kept some lime powder in his pocket, which he used specifically for Uchiha Itachi's Manjiki Sharingan. Sasuke walked and followed the two men. During the process, he still felt that he was not prepared enough. If I had known earlier, I would have gone to Naruto to get a statue or brought Xianglin with me at home so that I would have a 100% chance of winning. Yes, after the Chunin exam, the little doctor, Xianglin cried and shouted to follow him. In a moment of weakness, he took the poor girl in. He hasn't told anyone about this yet. At this time, Kakashi, who was watching the performance, turned around and spotted Sasuke leaving. Then he spotted 2 guys wearing red clouds and black robes. Seeing the 2 people dressed up, Kakashi immediately noticed something was wrong. The costumes that Naruto put on were all made by him, and he remembered every style clearly. There is no such outfit. Realizing something was wrong, Kakashi said goodbye to Jiraiya and followed him by accident. Mr. Itachi, it seems we are being followed. It doesn't matter. Go find a place in front to deal with them. Itachi is now focused on finding his younger brother, and he is very anxious. After coming to Konoha village for so long, he couldn't see Sasuke. He was a little worried that Sasuke couldn't bear the blows over the years and gave up on himself. "Sasuke, where have you been?" After walking for more than 10 minutes, Itachi realized that he was almost out of the village and there were people following him, so he stopped. Kisame grinned and turned around to fight, but when he saw the person following behind him, he suddenly fell into a trance. The man was dressed in a black robe and cloak, with a hood on his head so that his face could not be seen clearly. The most special thing was the weapon he was carrying behind his back. What the hell? Is this kid learning from himself? And why is his sword even more exaggerated than his own Samahata? Uchiha Itachi turned around and glanced at the black-robed boy, and then focused all his attention on Kakashi behind him. He never thought that the weirdly dressed guy in front of him was his younger brother. Uchiha Itachi raised his hand to gently hold the bamboo hat and slowly took it off, revealing his true appearance. The Kisame on the side took it off in unison, laughed a few words, and then spoke. "It seems we are in some trouble, Mr. Itachi. That guy is the copy ninja Kakashi, right?" Itachi said nothing and Genjutsu activated silently. Boom! At this moment, Sasuke took off the mysterious ruler and smashed it on the ground, holding it in front of his chest. "Interesting. Mr. Itachi, leave that boy in black robe to me." Kisame thought that the other party was provoking him by taking out a weapon similar to his own. Itachi nodded slightly, acquiescing to Kisame's decision. "Kakashi Senpai, it's been a long time no see. You guy." Kakashi came to Sasuke with a strange expression on his face. Did Itachi not recognize his brother? The four of them stood there, no one making a move first. A breeze blew by, blowing off the hood on Sasuke's head, revealing his cold expression. "Call!" Sasuke grabbed the Zuenzongzi, pointed at Uchiha Itachi, and shouted loudly. 1 against 7. You made it easy for me to wait. I tell you, 6 years in Hudong, 6 years in Hushi. Don't bully young people into poverty. Who are you?" Faced with the enemy's sudden provocation, Uchiha Itachi was silent for a long time before speaking. His vision was slightly blurred, and he could only make out a rough outline of a person. Even when he recognized Kakashi, he only recognized him when he saw the white hair on his head. Now this young man in black robe. Uchiha Itachi thought back on his life experiences, but he didn't expect that a matching person would come out. Sasuke heard that his enemy did not recognize him, and the anger in his chest was about to burst out. Did it turn out that this guy didn't take him to heart at all? Hateful. I will definitely kill you today. Sasuke raised his head, revealing a pair of scarlet 3 Magatama Sharingan. When Itachi saw a flash of red, his eyes opened slightly, and his face was filled with surprise. "Where did you Sharingan come from?" There was a hint of anger in his voice when he said this. Although Uchiha has exterminated the clan, things like Sharingan are not accessible to outsiders, and he was worried that the other party would attack his younger brother. "Rough. 1 against 7. You will die." Sasuke's temperament has become very patient after being tempered by Naruto. At this moment, hearing Uchiha Itachi's words really broke his defense on the spot. He grabbed the Xianzhong ruler, used 3,000 thunderbolts, and rushed forward instantly. "Your opponent is me." When Kisame saw that this kid wanted to attack Itachi, he immediately drew out his Samahata to fight. "Wait, Sasuke, come back quickly. He is not something you can deal with." Kakashi knew something was wrong when he saw the boy rushing towards him. This person in front of him is an S-level rebellious ninja from Konoha. His strength is beyond what Sasuke can handle right now. Uchiha Itachi, who was performing Genjutsu, suddenly paused when he heard Sasuke's name. Then his face was filled with shock. That boy in black robe is his younger brother Uchiha Sasuke? What a joke. How did Sasuke become like this? His brother's drastic change made Itachi's mind a little confused, and at this time Sasuke had already appeared in front of Kisame. Sasuke was already eager for revenge, but he was even more angry because he hadn't recognized him yet. Immediately, I didn't plan to do any testing or anything like that. I just turned on the curse seal and lightly swiped the Xianzhong ruler while moving to attach fire style to the weapon. When he came to the weird man, He waved the Xianzhong ruler and used his ultimate move without any hesitation. The infant devours the wave ruler. Kisame sneered, grabbed the same muscle, and chopped it up. Really desperate. How dare you play this trick in front of yourself? My own Samahata muscles can absorb chakra. While the huge flames flew against Kisame's face, and the powerful impact made him fly backwards before he could react.
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.